Welcome to Chinese Novel Audio Wave. We bring you 2 daily uploads, ensuring you never miss a moment of the action. Stay tuned, subscribe and let's dive into today's story. 501 The Essence of Extraordinary Life Forms and the Collision of Power Systems. From Liu Sheng and Jinglong's appearance to Jinglong's surrender, the battle is over. It seems to be a long time, but in fact, only dozens of breaths have passed. Before many people could see clearly, the battle was over. The host of the competition was silent for a few seconds, and then burst into a lunatic roar. Punch! Another punch! Even against the genius Jinglong, who is also an extraordinary physique, Liu Sheng still ended the fight with just one punch. It's unbelievable, you know, Jinglong is an 11th level powerhouse, and possesses a Huido level extraordinary life physique. But still can't even take a punch from Liu Sheng. Is the immortal bloodline really so overbearing? To be honest, I didn't even see what the power of Jinglong's extraordinary life physique was. The speed of his defeat was really too fast. Speaking of speed, here I would like to recommend a potion to everyone. It is a tonic newly developed by the Kobalko Group. It has a great nourishing effect on certain aspects of our male abilities, and can greatly prolong the time up to an astonishing 10 days. Who found this host, and can you change it? It's 2. Liu Sheng, who went down to the waiting area, was speechless looking at the host of the competition above, who was advertising. I've already reported it to the public. The people in the publicity department said that this guy is the host chosen by a big sponsor, and the audience seems to like this. Far beside him helplessly explained. 733 Liu Sheng shook his head, didn't bother to pay attention to it, just found a seat and sat down, and began to watch other people's competition. On the way, Liu Qinghe also made a video call, and Liu Qinghe on the other end of the communicator was so excited that he looked like a little girl. Liu Sheng looked thoughtfully at the smiling faces of Liu Qinghe, his parents, Dong Qingxiu, and others. It is still necessary to bring my family to watch the game. The stronger the strength I show, the more comfortable I will perform in battle. When I am alone, they will feel more at ease. Originally, in this competition, Liu Sheng carried out with the idea of crushing all the way and flattening all dissatisfaction. The main purpose is to repay the favor of Dunlop and others, the high-level executives of the subjugating region, and tell them that the resources they invested in themselves were not in vain. Liu Sheng has always been a low-key, humble, polite, and gentle person. Now it seems that it has to continue to be high-profile. Why? Liu Sheng looked at the contestants sitting in the waiting area, and thought silently in his heart, no way, in order to make the family feel more at ease, I Zhongneng Konghuang will crush you one by one. At this time, the second group of contestants, behind Liu Sheng and the others entered the stage. One of the two is from the Menyun Star area, and the other is from the Zilan Star area. They are all well-known super geniuses in their respective star regions. Both of them are possessors of extraordinary life physiques. One is a 9-star morning star, and the other is a 1-star Huilu star. The difference is not big, and the fight is also very exciting. Liu Sheng watched it carefully for a while. This is also the first time he has watched a battle between other extraordinary life physique owners. The battle lasted for a long time, almost more than 10 hours, and the intensity was far more intense than the previous battle between Liu Sheng and Jinglong. In the end, it ended with the victory of the Huido 1-star genius in the Zilan Star district. The entire asteroid competition arena was almost smashed, and there were potholes everywhere, so the organizing committee of the competition hurriedly sent people to repair it. The host of the competition shouted from beginning to end, and the emotions of the audience on more than 1,500 spectator stars were constantly ignited and detonated. To describe it in the words of a certain audience member, this is what the semi-finals of a super-large genius martial arts tournament covering 12-star regions should really look like. The previous battle between Liu Sheng and Jinglong ended so quickly that one couldn't help but wonder if one of them deliberately released the water. Liu Sheng also gained a lot after reading it. The possessor of an extraordinary life physique surpasses the ordinary starry sky race in terms of life level. To put it bluntly, its life essence, body structure, and other aspects are more perfect and advanced than ordinary life forms. Corresponding to martial arts, it means having a more advanced power system than ordinary warriors. It's like two spaceships of the same size and specification. The internal engine is constructed differently. You have to take a long time to start slowly, and others will break the speed of light in less than a second. How to compare? The more advanced and perfect the power system, the higher the level of extraordinary life physique. This is also the reason why the fighting power of a genius with an extraordinary life physique is far superior to that of ordinary warriors of the same level. From this point of view, the power systems of the Star Supreme Body and the Sun God Domain Star Chart are still very advanced. Within at least 12 star regions, there is no more powerful power crystal system than the Star Supreme Body and the Sun God Domain Star Map. To understand this, Liu Sheng watched the match on the court again. Cutting through the appearance and directly appreciating the collision between various power systems, the originally boring battle suddenly became much more interesting. One of them is a woman with fiery red hair from the Black Place Star region. Can inspire a blue flame from the blood. It is also fire, but this kind of blue fire is cold, corrosive, and accurate. It is completely different from the domineering, explosive, and high-temperature attributes of the stellar flame controlled by Liu Sheng. This aroused Liu Sheng's great curiosity, and he couldn't help asking Far beside him, "Who is this woman?" "I'm about to introduce you." As Liu Sheng's assistant, Far is familiar with the information of each contestant, and quickly replied, "Gray from the Blue Demon Flame family in the Black Place Star region has an extraordinary life physique from Huiyu 9 stars, and his strength is level 11. Pinnacle, is one of the few opponents we need to focus on." "Oh." Liu Sheng responded, staring at the graceful figure wrapped in blue flames on the field, his eyes flickered slightly. "I thought in my heart, I must study her power system structure carefully if I have the opportunity, maybe it will be of unexpected help to the way of the stars." At this time, the voice of the contest host rang in my ears. "I believe many of you will be very familiar with the players who will be playing next. He once spent a year single-handedly killing thousands of starry sky blue. He once froze a living star with his bare hands. His name once resounded throughout the hill sector. He is the one." The host of the contest raised his voice sharply, pointed his finger in a certain direction, and said loudly, "The most outstanding genius in the history of the hill sector, the Ice Demon Monroe." Boom! In an instant, many spectators on the star and aircraft stood up and shouted enthusiastically. "Ice Demon! Ice Demon! Ice Demon!" The height of popularity far exceeds the treatment anyone has received before. Liu Sheng was slightly surprised, and asked Far, "Is this Monroe so famous?" Far nodded, and said with a serious expression, "When Monroe rose, the name of the Ice Demon was not limited to just one hill sector. The surrounding 5 or 6 star regions were once shrouded in the brilliance of his genius. He has defeated countless geniuses who came to challenge him in the starry sky. Achieved many incredible feats. Really great." Fall solemnly emphasized to Liu Sheng. 502 A frozen eye, scary Monroe, eating from the bowl and looking at the pot. Then he really froze a star. It must be exaggerated. It may be just a tiny star whose lifespan is coming to an end. But even that is remarkable enough. At least, I've never heard of anyone doing that at 11th level. Monroe's strength should not be underestimated." Liu Sheng nodded slightly, focusing his gaze on Monroe, who was slowly walking out of the arena. "This is a very dazzling figure. A head of white hair like a glacier waterfall, vertical to the waist. The pupils are the ultimate ice blue without any warmth. The facial features also seem to be carved from extremely low glaciers, sharp and cold. His whole body was covered by countless fine icicles, which splashed and collided, leaving sharp black holes in the void. Monroe's coldness even directly affected people's vision. Ordinary people stared at him for a long time, and even couldn't help shivering from the cold. It is impossible to imagine what kind of terrifying icy air is contained in his body. And Monroe's strength is indeed so strong that it is suffocating. His opponent this round is a genius from the Logitech star area, level 11, possessing an extraordinary life physique of the Huiral level. It can also be regarded as powerful. But Monroe just glanced at him. Just look at him. One glance. This guy was directly frozen into a big lump of ice. Then. The battle is over. Hiss. Countless people who witnessed this scene gasped. Monroe's strength is simply asking for points. A genius with a Huiral level extraordinary life physique at the 11th level can't even bear a single eye of Monroe. How to fight this? Fuck it. The gap is too big. They are not opponents on the same level at all. Level 12. Monroe must be in tier 12 already. Someone shouted out. Countless people were shocked by it. Before the game, it was widely rumored that Monroe had already entered the top 12, and many people were skeptical. But now it seems. This rumor is very likely to be true. If Monroe is really level 12, then there is absolutely no need for this competition to go on, the number one must be Monroe. Who else can hide the light of Monroe? Immortal level bloodlines are not good either. Someone sighed and said, and many people took it seriously. Monroe, who solved his opponent with one look, walked out of a glacier and snow prison, and was in charge of the extremely cold demon god. Icy blue eyes scanned the audience, and finally landed on Liu Sheng. I'm waiting for you. Monroe said something to Liu Sheng with a smile on his face, and then left. All of a sudden, Liu Sheng once again became the focus of attention. Countless voices of discussion are raging, and countless people are frantically speculating about his chances of winning against Monroe. And in the corner of the big screen in the starry sky, it represents the ranking of the probability of the popular star players winning the championship. Liu Sheng, who originally occupied the first place, lost his chances of winning wildly in just a few breaths, and was overtaken by the second-ranked Monroe again, and the opponent's winning rate was more than twice his. Most of the immortal light belonging to Liu Sheng was captured by Monroe at this moment. The kingly posture he specially created before, only under Monroe's glance. It just collapsed. As expected of Ice Demon Monroe, really strong. Far wiped away the goosebumps floating on his hands and arms with an ugly face. It's just that Monroe stared at Liu Sheng just now, and the eyes he received were affected. It's just God's influence. Just let the hairs of an 11th level powerhouse stand on end. Far didn't know what to say. What a monster! He shook his head, looked at Liu Sheng, hesitated for a while but couldn't help asking, "Are you sure you'll meet him?" Liu Sheng shook his head calmly. "Have no idea." The answer was pretty much what Far expected. It is impossible to say it if you are not sure, otherwise, would you be timid before fighting? Far thought to himself, sighed, and comforted Liu Sheng, "Actually, it doesn't matter if you lose to Monroe, after all, he is so many years older than you. You are immortal, but he is only the son, you will be able to catch up with him in the future, don't put too much pressure." Liu Sheng nodded, but did not speak. He really didn't know if he could beat Monroe. Because he himself doesn't know how strong he is now. And Monroe's current strength is only the tip of the iceberg. How do you compare two quantities that are both uncertain? However, Monroe's Dao is really interesting. It is colder and more profound than my Hanji Sparrow Prison Dao, and it is exactly what is lacking in my Northern Suanwu True Water Dao. If you have the opportunity to fight against him, you can try to figure out his way and the power system represented by his extraordinary life physique. Liu Sheng thought to himself. 0. Ask for flowers. After Monroe, there is no one who can match him in the follow-up. The power of his glance was too amazing. It was so amazing that even though Monroe was off the stage and other people competed on stage, many audience members were still immersed in the power and terror of that glance. And the winning rate of Monroe's championship prediction in the corner of the big screen in the starry sky is also continuously increasing. Grow to the end, directly to a staggering 95%. This time, the Battle of Kunyasha from the Zilan Star District. The notification from the contest host suddenly caught Liu Sheng's attention. Book of Thousand Feathers. Liu Sheng's expression changed, and he subconsciously looked in a certain direction. He saw a young man with ordinary facial features and refined temperament coming out. Among the contestants in high-end combat uniforms, Qian Yushu in a casual suit looked particularly different. And this guy's fighting style is even more different. He only relies on the palm of his hand against the enemy. Both palms merged into sword fingers. With a finger, there is an extremely powerful and pure sharp sword light blazing out. A genius from another star region who was fighting with him didn't resist a few times, but his battle uniform was cut by his sword light, and he was forced to admit defeat. It's wired. Liu Sheng's eyes lit up, he stared at Qian Yushu and said in a low voice, his control over the natural energy of the universe is too exquisite, and the natural energy of the universe that can be mobilized in an instant is also ridiculously large, almost an ordinary 11th level strong, more than 100 times that of those. Right. Fall said with a serious expression, this guy doesn't even have an extraordinary life physique. But his mental power is extremely powerful, and his combat methods are quite peculiar. Interesting. Liu Sheng's eyes flickered. What this thousand-feather book shows is no longer a simple difference in power system. It feels like a product of another unique cultivation system. Could it be that the power of another universe reincarnated and rebuilt? Why wasn't someone arrested and used as a guinea pig for research? Liu Sheng thought to himself, if there is a chance, I have to catch this guy and study it carefully. Liu Sheng's Shiquan Wu Dao follows the path of being inclusive of all rivers and including all the ways in the world. Although he is still far from absorbing and digesting the Dao of a universe stored in the dream space. But this does not prevent him from eating from the bowl and looking into the pot. The fourth round of the semi-finals is finally over. At this time, there were only 24 contestants left in the field. Then came the intense fifth round of Chuan's competition. 503. The final begins. 1. This round wasn't too turbulent. Liu Sheng still beat his opponent with one punch. 3 times of limit-breaking combat strength. In the 11th level, it is basically a horizontal push. Ordinary 11th level powerhouses, such as Far, have amazing combat power, reaching the level of breaking the limit once and approaching breaking the limit twice. Extraordinary life physique bonus also breaks through the limit twice at most. The 3 limit-breaking battle strengths almost existed like a bug. Not to mention that Liu Sheng is only level 10. However, he bears the halo of the immortal bloodline, although it is surprising, but it always gives people a feeling that it should be taken for granted. On the contrary, Monroe's popularity continues to rise. It is still a look to solve the battle. The picture effect presented is still shocking. Even Liu Sheng has to admit. This move is really going to force Grauman. Then there is the Kunyashu, which Liu Sheng paid close attention to, showing that the 640 is still as tepid as it is. Qian Yushu's popularity among the audience is not high, but in the eyes of many caring people, it deserves more attention than the 2 favorites, Liu Sheng and Monroe. Liu Sheng even saw that during the Kunyasha competition, Monroe looked at it quite seriously, with a look of great interest in it. So far, the 5 rounds of the semi-finals are all over. A total of 14 contestants made it to the finals. 3 rounds of finals, plus the final, a total of 4 rounds. And the competition has come to an end temporarily, entering a day of rest and advertising time. Watching the game continuously, do you feel tired, sleepy, and lack of energy? Thirsty, tired, drink Dong Niao. Dong Niao refreshing potion, a good potion without side effects. Cheering and shouting for the contestants I support for a long time, what should I do if my voice is hoarse and my mental strength is exhausted? Jinquan Bushan Pill, a pill that strengthens your voice and restores your spirit, making you the most beautiful boy in the audience. Liu Sheng, bearing some shocking advertisements, came out of the waiting area and flew towards his spaceship White Hole shuttle. As soon as they entered the spaceship, the people in the spaceship rushed up on their own initiative. Brother, you are so handsome. Liu King he handed the communicator to him, and said excitedly, Blue Star is also broadcasting your game live, and billions of people are cheering for you. Liu Sheng took a glance and found that it was true. Almost all the civilization-covered corners of the entire Azure Star are broadcasting the Interstellar Martial Arts Genius Exchange Competition live. It can be regarded as the whole people watching the game, and it is thousands of times more enthusiastic than any World Cup. Azure Star has officially joined the starry sky. Liu Sheng smiled and said nothing. Afterwards, he talked to his parents and Dong Qingxiu for a while, then walked into the room by himself. As soon as he entered the room, the mortal weapon in Liu Sheng's hand rang. Liu Sheng picked up the communication, and Dunlop's image appeared on the communication device. Compared with before, Dunlop's expression was much more serious at this time. Liu Sheng, I have some news for you. Both Minro and Qian Yushu have been promoted to level 12. Liu Sheng looked slightly startled, but quickly regained his composure, and asked, Are you sure? The Federation of 100-star regions has just announced a new batch of 12th level powerhouses, and the names of Minro and Qian Yushu are among them. Dunlop replied with a slightly complicated expression, You have a mental preparation, if you lose, you don't have to hold on. Vr. Dunlop paused, and said with emotion, After all, he is still too young. Okay, I see, speaker. Liu Sheng hung up the communication and sat quietly on the sofa in the room for a while. Then, enter the dream space. Level 12. A dreamlike voice sounded in the room. Compared to the 13th level zombie powerhouse in the dream space, so what? The rest of the day passed quickly. The contestants entered the arena one after another. One day passed, and the audience's blood bars were full, and they were full of energy. In addition, the competition organizing committee took advantage of this time to add hundreds of planetary seats for watching the battle, and the atmosphere in the starry sky became even more enthusiastic. Monroe! Monroe! Ice Demon! Shouts of Monroe's name could be heard everywhere, and occasional calls for Liu Sheng and other players' names were quickly drowned out. These guys, why are they all supporting that Monroe? Liu King he clenched his fists, gritted his teeth and said angrily, Brother, teach that Monroe a lesson and give them a good slap in the face. What nonsense! Liu Haihei next to him hastily scolded, and turned to Liu Sheng, Xiao Sheng, listen to Dad, don't be brave, if you have to admit defeat, just admit defeat. You are already amazing enough. Yes. Zheng Yufen looked even more worried, and couldn't help grabbing Liu Sheng's hand, muttering, Xiao Sheng, why don't we admit defeat, it's not ashamed anyway. I think that is called Ice Demon, it's amazing, a lot people are frozen by him at a glance. Liu Sheng patted his mother Zheng Yufen's hand, smiled and comforted him, Mom, that's because his previous opponent was too weak. He's not that strong, you can watch it later, and see how I beat him into a pig's head. But even if Liu Sheng said so, Zheng Yufen was not worried. Liu Sheng could only try his best to appease his parents' emotions, and waited until the time was almost up before getting ready to play. Before going on stage, Dong Qingxiu gently pulled him, and whispered, Be careful. Liu Sheng's eyes touched, he hugged Dong Qingxiu, then smiled, turned and left. Soon, all 14 players appeared on the stage. These 14 people almost represent the 14 most powerful people under 1,000 years old in the 12-star regions. When the figures of the 14 people appeared on the big screen in the starry sky. Before the finals even started, the atmosphere had already been ignited. Amidst the overwhelming shouts, the starry sky seemed to become hotter. As the host of the final, Dunlop, Speaker of the House of Representatives of the Yamuxing district, came out from the highest spectator seats and announced the start of the draw. The identity cards of the 14 people began to emit blue light. The blue light forms a beam of light and enters the starry sky. Finally, the result of the lottery was displayed on the big screen in the starry sky. Sheng looked at the result of the final lottery, his eyes flickered slightly. 5.6. He saw his opponent's name and subconsciously looked in a certain direction. It happened that the man also looked at him. Two eyes collided in the starry sky, and what caught Sheng's eyes was a woman with a slender figure and hot hair. Grey of the blue pole demon flame family in the black place star area. That is, the one that Sheng had noticed before and found the other party's blood flames quite interesting. At this time, this woman was surrounded by fierce fighting spirit, her beautiful eyes were staring at Sheng intently, full of the urge to try. A belligerent bitch. Sheng thought to himself, and walked into the waiting area expressionlessly. Immediately afterwards, the first round of the final competition officially kicked off. Recently, the state is so bad that I feel that something is wrong no matter how I write it, but I have to update it, my head is almost scratching, hey. 504 level 12. Okay, now I end number 039, am not afraid of killing you. 2. Boom. The thousands of meters long Daoguang and Jiangang follow the veins of the starry sky and the orbit of the universe, and compete with each other. The two figures turned into streamers in space, colliding with each other at extremely high speed and frequency. The void swelled like a rag, tearing open large black cracks. Most of the area of an asteroid arena was bombarded with potholes and a mess. Suddenly, one of the figures stopped, punched him hard in the chest, and roared loudly. Thousand illusory meteor! In an instant, thousands of white streamers shot out from his martial body. These streams of light converged on the black long knife held tightly in his right hand. The sword gang that was originally thousands of meters long suddenly shrank, but the aura became more than a few times more solid. The knife light rolls, and the three-layer control is broken. Then it shattered the opponent's sword light in an instant, the latter's face changed drastically, and before he could react in the future, he was directly chopped off by the knife. Morton Sector, Gabriel Rice wins. The referee loudly announced the victory of one of the parties, and a face with an unruly smile was immediately reflected on the big screen in the starry sky. The audience on nearly 2,000 spectator stars stood up and shouted the winner's name loudly. Gable Rice. Gabur Rice. But this seemingly fierce 0-2 battle, to some people, is nothing special, nothing to make a fuss about. This Gabriel Rice is also a Huiral level 9 star extraordinary life physique, and his combat power has broken the limit 3 times. The strength is very strong, and he is expected to hit the top 5 masters, so we need to focus on it. Far stared at the information displayed on the optical brain, carefully doing comparative analysis and recording, diligently performing his duties as an assistant. Far was talking, and suddenly realized that Sheng was not listening to him carefully. Sitting quietly on the chair, his eyes were calm, as if he was thinking about something else. Far glanced at the position of the big screen in the starry sky, hesitated for a moment, and said, Sheng, your winning percentage has almost dropped out of the top 5. Oh, is it so? Sheng seemed to have just come back to his senses, looked up at the big screen in the starry sky, surprised said, really, the anger is so fast. Far looked a little helpless, and said in a low voice, in the finals, many people have gradually released their hidden strengths, and the situation is getting less and less optimistic. Yes. Sheng sighed in a low voice, looking at it now, what I said before seems like a joke. No, that's not what it means. Far wanted to say something, but was interrupted by Shenchi. Never mind. Sheng stretched out a finger and tapped his temple, and said seriously, people's memory is the thing that is most likely to decline. If you don't keep emphasizing it, they'll soon forget it. Lu Sheng paused, and suddenly asked Far seriously. What do you think, what should the immortal level veins look like? Far froze, blinking his eyes. Before he could figure out how to answer, at this time, the announcement of the host of the competition had already sounded on the field. The next match will be Lu Sheng, the owner of our immortal bloodline, against the demon flame from the blue demon family in the black flounder star region Grey. Boom! A blue figure rushed up into the sky suddenly, and fell heavily on the asteroid science field like a meteorite. A huge pit was smashed into the ground. In the huge pit where the blue fire spread, a tall and fit body stood. The woman wrapped in blue flames also had blue flames rising from her eyes, staring at Lu Sheng scorchingly. The charming face is full of high-spirited fighting spirit. Wow! The emotions of the audience on the watching star were ignited, and they all stood up, and the sound of mountains and tsunamis echoed in the starry sky. The host of the competition also shouted wildly with the microphone. Hundreds of camera machines were aimed at Lu Sheng. But Lu Sheng didn't seem to feel the slightest of all the noise. Lu Sheng stood up slowly, and casually closed the optical brain filled with analysis data in Far's hand. Patted on his shoulder lightly, said calmly, "Let me tell you the answer." Far was stunned, and before he could react, Lu Sheng had already stepped forward and appeared in the arena. When Lu Sheng stepped onto the competition arena, the blue flames on Grey's body in the arena suddenly jumped up again, just like her fighting spirit, it was even more surging. Immortal bloodline. Grey's eyes were as bright as stars, staring at Lu Sheng intently, a strange light bloomed on his face. Finally, I have the opportunity to verify it myself. It's really exciting. Saying that, Grey stretched his body, and the blue flames on his body gathered together like flowing water, forming a gorgeous battle armor of brilliance. _. With the appearance of this pair of blue flame armor, Grey's aura also skyrocketed. With every gesture, the void around him continued to show signs of shattering. Lu Sheng didn't seem to have seen this, but calmly said, "If you want to prove immortality for yourself, are you ready to bleed?" Grey looked startled, then smiled slightly. The next moment, a strange energy fluctuation emanated from her body. In an instant. Wow! A sound like the tide of the sea sounded in the starry sky. The sound spread across the entire starry sky in an instant. Countless light spots appeared and converged above Grey's head, finally condensing into a splendid Tongtian silver bridge. Boom! The appearance of this splendid silver bridge made the people in the entire starry sky boil over it. Even many contestants in the waiting area all stood up abruptly from their positions. Looking at Grey, who was shrouded in the brilliance of the silver bridge, he was shocked and moved. The contest host was also stunned for a few seconds. Then, emotionally, he grabbed the microphone and roared loudly, "Level 12! My God!" Unexpectedly, Grey, the flower of our black flounder star region, has already been promoted to the 12th level. How old is she this year, Tian? It's unbelievable, this is definitely the biggest upset in this competition so far. Grey. Next to the test field, there is a huge flying 917 with the Blue Devil family crest printed on it. The tall, middle-aged man with fiery red hair like Grey watched this scene quietly, stood with his hands behind his back, and smiled without saying a word. There was a touch of relief and pride flowing out of his eyes. In the highest spectator seat, Dunlop and other top figures in the major star regions also showed slight surprise and emotion on their faces. Subscribe to Chinese Novel Audio Wave. All of a sudden, the eyes of countless people all focused on Grey, and all the topics revolved around her. At this moment, Grey is as dazzling as the Queen of Stars. "Thanks to you, drunk," Grey said to Lu Sheng with a smile, "I thought that I would have the opportunity to fight against a legendary genius with immortal blood, and possibly defeat him. My heart couldn't stop the excitement and trembling. So accidentally, I broke through a few days ago. Gray took 2 steps forward slowly, and the Milky Way above her head swayed with her movements, which was unparalleled. Gray's eyes flickered, looked at Lu Sheng, tilted his head and said softly, "Am I qualified now?" "Level 12, is this level 12? Lu Sheng looked at the Milky Way above Gray's head, which was attracted and converged by the force of rules, and his eyes were slightly in a trance. But soon completely restored calm. Lu Sheng described it as before, nodded calmly, and said, "Yes. That way, I won't be afraid of accidentally beating you to death." As he spoke, Lu Sheng stepped forward lightly. "I beg you to give me some time. Tonight I will sort it out and look for my status. I have been really uncomfortable recently." 505 The 12th level rule quenches the body. Lu Sheng stops here? 1. With Lu Sheng taking this step, more than 80,000 immortal cells in his body were all revived, blooming with incomparable light. This light came from the inside out, making his whole body seem to be shining. In the blink of an eye, Lu Sheng had already appeared in front of Gray. He aimed at her face and punched her hard. Gray seemed to have expected Lu Sheng's punch a long time ago, and his right hand formed a claw, grasping his punch with great skill. Boom! The fists and claws collided, and the collision made a dull sound. When the two met each other, they fought together. Lu Sheng used punches, and Gray used claws. The martial arts realm of both of them has reached the peak of the 5 realms, and every movement follows the veins of heaven and earth, just like the planets in the universe. The collision of fists and claws is like planets colliding with each other, leaving layers of broken depressions in the void. The fighting power of both of them has reached the level of breaking the limit 3 times, black and white starbursts splashed everywhere, and the scene was extremely intense. The people who watched this battle were all bloody and angry, and their breathing almost stopped. The battle between the 10th level Immortal and the 12th level Huiyu has never happened in the history of the 12-star regions. This will be a battle that will go down in history. But with the passage of time, Lu Fu's advantage as a 12th level gradually emerged. The gorgeous Milky Way above her head has incredible power, and the falling starlight covers her whole body, forming an invisible but tangible barrier. Lu Sheng's fist landed on it, and it could only hit the barrier with ripples. At best, it would shock Gray a little, and it couldn't hurt her at all. So much so that Gray hardly cares about defense, and only needs to attack with all his strength. And under Lu Sheng's blows again and again, the gorgeous Milky Way above Gray's head showed signs of continuously falling and merging into her body. With the integration of the Milky Way, the aura of Tai Lei is also rising steadily. It's climbing almost all the time. Her 5 fingers slid across the void, initially only leaving 3 layers of black, white, and black claw marks in the void. And after 1/3 of the gorgeous galaxy merged into her body, she grabbed it casually. The 4th layer of the void also had traces of being torn apart. Many contestants in the waiting area looked slightly moved. Gray is using the pressure from Lu Sheng to push himself to complete the 12th level of body training faster. If the 11th level is to control the rules and grasp the context of the world, then the 12th level is to connect the veins of heaven and earth into the body and re-strengthen the martial body. Make the martial body reach a level that is stronger, and more in line with the power of the rules it has mastered. The gorgeous galaxy above Gray's head is a concrete embodiment of the power of rules that she used to advance to the 12th level. She just entered the 12th level for the first time, and she has just been able to attract the regular galaxy, and has not yet completed the step of integrating the regular galaxy into the tempered martial body. But in the process of fighting with Lu Sheng, the regular galaxy above Gray's head gradually integrated into her body. This means that she is officially approaching the 12th level. This is also the reason why Gray's strength continues to grow as the battle progresses. Gray is too strong, I'm afraid she is already qualified to fight with Monroe. In this competition, she must be in the top 3. The more the onlookers watched, the more frightened they became, and they couldn't help but exclaim in amazement. In addition to marveling at Gray's strength, he was also shocked by Lu Sheng's evildoer. Being 2 full realms behind Grey, Liu Sheng managed to hold on for so long without losing, not even getting injured. Immortal level bloodlines really deserve to be immortal level bloodlines, it's really unbelievable. The immortal level bloodline only gave Liu Sheng a terrifying combat power that broke the limit 3 times. He can survive under Grey's hands until now, mainly because of his body skills. It has also reached the peak of the 5 realms. The onlookers on the sidelines talked a lot. In the highest spectator seats, a group of 12th level top figures from various star regions are also watching this battle. This generation of the Blue Devil family can be regarded as a successor, and it is possible to give birth to a 12th level who is less than 1,000 years old. If there is another breakthrough in the future, this little girl named Grey might be able to push the Blue Devil's family to a higher peak. Really? The speakers who were invited from different star regions spoke softly. One of them was wearing a gorgeous robe, his hair and beard were carefully groomed, and the old man who looked dignified and luxurious suddenly smiled and turned his head to look at someone. He opened the mouth and said, "Dunlop, it seems that your immortal blood in the sub-Jupiter region will stop here." Dunlop, expressionless, glanced at the speaker. Speaker of the House of Representatives of the Hill Sector. Dunlop replied lightly, "Although Liu Sheng is immortal, after all, he is only in his 20s this year. He has just been promoted to the 10th level, and he is no match for the 12th level Huyu. It is also reasonable." "Yes." The chairman of the Hill Star District nodded in agreement, but immediately changed the topic and said, "It's a pity, I originally wanted to see the battle between our Monroe and the immortal bloodline. But now I can't see it." "Why?" The speaker of the Hill Star District sighed, with regret on his face. Seeing the eyelids of Dunlop, the chief law enforcement officer and the frontline commander next to him twitch slightly, they felt the urge to lift the soles of their shoes and slap them on the face of Hill Star District Speaker Shen Bingj. At this time, the battle between Liu Sheng and Grey became more and more obvious. Liu Sheng was almost completely at a disadvantage. Originally, the two were fighting each other, you come and I go, evenly matched. But after more than half of the Milky Way above Grey's head merged into his body, Liu Sheng almost spent most of his time dodging. Only after Grey made 10 moves did he have a chance to return a punch. Such an obvious decline can be seen even by ordinary audiences. "Liu Sheng, I'm afraid he's about to lose." Even some spectators on the watching star couldn't help standing up, cursing. "Damn! It's a shame that I even bought Liu Sheng Ying, so it's a terrible loss." These sentiments that were not optimistic about Liu Sheng quickly spread in the audience seats, so that many people who were close to Liu Sheng also showed a deep sense of worry on their faces. This emotion will reach its peak directly in the next step. It's almost over. Liu Sheng. Grey, who was fighting, suddenly let out a soft moan, and crossed his hands in front of him. At the same time, all the blue flames on her body belonged between the 2 claws. Blue Demon Flame Killer. Grey let out a soft drink, and suddenly stretched out his claws, and disappeared. I saw several fantastic blue flames flashing in the void. 2 figures intertwine. The surrounding audience's eyes, Niu Wang's, flickered in front of them, and when they looked again, they found that Grey and Liu Sheng had switched places at some point. The two stood with their backs facing each other at both ends of the asteroid arena. Grey stood there indifferently, with his hands drooping naturally, and a faint blue flame was burning on the fingertips of each of his 10 fingers. Grey raised his hands, and picked out strands of silk thread from between his fingers. There was a slight disappointment in her eyes, as if she didn't find what she was expecting. "You can still escape." Grey turned around, surprise written all over his face. Behind Grey, Liu Sheng stood quietly, looking down at his chest. There were 10 deep claw marks, and the 11th level battle suit was completely torn. Reveals the perfectly contoured muscles underneath. Didn't quite escape. Liu Sheng raised his head and said to Grey calmly. "Thanks to my wife for her encouragement and supervision, starting tomorrow, the daily 4D update will be resumed, and I am going to continue updating the old life book. 506. Be optimistic about far, this is immortality. 2. Gray stared at the position of Liu Sheng's chest without blinking. It doesn't even have any scars. Is this the defensive power of an immortal level extraordinary life physique? Gray made an exclamation sound, but quickly smiled and said casually. Forget it, it doesn't matter. Anyway. Gray stretched his body, and the blue flame surged again. She walked towards Liu Sheng, whispering in her mouth, everything will end soon. Ugh! Gray's figure disappeared. The dreamlike trace of the blue flame streaked across the void again. But this time, after Gray's figure reappeared, there was a bit of surprise on his face. She raised her hands and saw that her fingernails were clean without any residue. Turn around sharply. Liu Sheng stood on the spot perfectly, as if he had never moved, but just turned around. How can this be? Gray looked surprised, a little unbelievable. Rule Galaxy is integrated into her body all the time, and she at this moment is much stronger than she at the last moment. The same moves, the same people. Last time she was able to leave claw marks on Liu Sheng's body, but this time she missed it. But Gray quickly returned to normal. Have you kept your strength? It seems that I have to be a little more serious. After all, it is an immortal level. Her expression was 280 slightly condensed, and the momentum on her body surged. The blue flames were no longer entangled between her fingers, but condensed into spikes, like two strange weapons grown in Gray's hands. This time, let me see how you escape. Gray stared at Liu Sheng and licked his lips lightly. The fighting spirit that had declined before had returned to her again, and it became even more intense. Liu Sheng remained calm. Looking at her, he suddenly said, everything in the universe has its own dark side. Even the flame that represents the light source is the same. Your blue extreme demonic flame represents the dark side of fire, so it presents an effect completely opposite to that of normal flames. Gray looked startled, and then frowned. What do you mean? What is the attribute of the bloodline flame of our Blue Devil family, and does it have anything to do with you? Gray raised his hands, and the blue flame wrapped around his body like a snake. She said with a strange expression, don't you think that if you understand the essence of my blood power, you can defeat me? Of course not. Liu Sheng shook his head. Understanding and deciphering are two concepts, and there is still a long way to go between the former and the latter. Gray was happy, and she was not in a hurry to attack. She put her hands on her chest casually, and said with a smile, then what do you want to tell me? Liu Sheng also smiled, and said, I want to tell you. I have always been very interested in the blood of your Blue Devil family, Blue Flame, so when I first fought against you, I couldn't help but study it carefully. Now, I have almost figured out what I wanted to figure out, and my doubts and curiosity have been satisfied. So what? Gray couldn't help frowning, still didn't understand what Sheng wanted to express. Not just Gray. The onlookers below were also confused by Liu Sheng's series of words. What exactly does Liu Sheng want to do? Are you still fighting? Some viewers are already impatient and can't help complaining. What do you think and gain? Go home and tell your wife. Let me talk about it here. We bought tickets to watch you fight, not to chat. That is, fight if you can beat it, and admit defeat if you can't beat it. Waste my time. Don't think that since you are of the immortal bloodline, I won't dare to scold you. Humph. Is Liu Sheng procrastinating on purpose? What kind of big move is he preparing? Ghost knows. Even the host of the contest joked with the microphone. It seems that Liu Sheng, the owner of our immortal bloodline, has started to use tactics at other levels after facing head-on and feeling hopeless to win. Just when everyone was talking and guessing, Liu Sheng's next sentence finally came out. So, Liu Sheng was condescending, looking at Gray with the expression "I see what kind of trick I want to play," smiled and said, "This battle can be over. It's long overdue." Gray shook his head, lowered his hands, and his eyes became cold. The regular, a koi, galaxy above her head melted into her body at an unprecedented speed. The aura on her body continued to climb rapidly, and she was constantly moving closer to the real level 12. She didn't know what Liu Sheng's plan was. She only knows that as the battle time continues to lengthen, the balance of victory will continue to tilt towards her. Procrastination? I also need time to sort out the power of the 12th level that I just mastered. Gray sighed softly, fully integrating the regular Milky Way above his head into himself. At the moment when Rule Galaxy completely merged with her, some wonderful changes seemed to take place in her body. Become more bleak, deeper, more flirtatious. Gray seemed to have completely turned into a blue fire. Where her figure was, the void around her body showed signs of being corroded and scorched. Layer. Second floor. 3 floors. Infinitely close to 4 layers. An unprecedented sense of strength filled Gray's whole body. She waved her hands lightly, and walked on a pilgrimage step by step. However, Liu Sheng didn't seem to care about her changes at all, and his expression was even a little regretful. "It's a pity, if you can take your blood further and let Lan Yan evolve, maybe it will inspire me even more." As he said that, Liu Sheng's expression returned to calm, and he said to Gray in a flat and natural way, "Reciprocity is reciprocal. Next, I will show you the extremely sunny side of the fire." "Well?" Gray looked startled. The next breath, Gray, as well as countless spectators on the sidelines, off the court, and in the starry sky, see a scene that you will never forget. Perfect martial arts, profound techniques. Golden Crow. Calm words resounded in the starry sky. Then, light. Dazzling to the extreme light. Hot. The unspeakable heat wave. Endless light and heat filled everyone's eyeballs. That scene, like a star. No. It's countless stars. Is being born suddenly. Many people involuntarily and subconsciously raise their hands to cover their eyes. When all the light and heat dissipated slightly, vision returned to normal. Look at everyone in the field, including Gray. All were stunned. I saw that the original Liu Sheng had disappeared. Instead, there was a man with mysterious and gorgeous gold patterns all over his body, and he was carrying a sun totem. The blonde hair is as bright as the sun, and the third divine eye is inlaid between the eyebrows. Huang yeah. A handsome young man who looks like an innate god. The young man turned his head, his golden eyes passed through layers of void, and landed on a middle-aged man with a dazed expression on the sidelines. He smiled slightly at the middle-aged man, and said softly, "Look at far, this is immortality." Finished. The young man moved, and suddenly appeared in front of the flirtatious Gray. His expression was contemptuous and flat. Punch out. It seemed that the crowing of the golden crow resounded through the starry sky. I feel a little bit, and the state is slowly getting back. 507 breaking the limit 4 times, shocking the audience, lack of mental strength, 1. No one can describe the brilliance of this punch. Everyone can only see a brilliant light. Thousands of red dots float in the light, and each dot represents a star. In an instant it gives people a sense of blurred dream. Then the dream was quickly torn apart. A magnificent 3-legged divine bird with golden wings spread its wings and flew out of it. Its figure was reflected in the eyes of countless people, and Gray's pupils shrank rapidly due to poisonous cowardice. Blue flame crystal barrier. Gray reacted quickly in less than 1,000th of an eye blink. Like green onion, 10 fingers interlaced in front of the chest. Countless blue flames surged out, condensing into layers of blue crystal walls in front of her. Gives a sense of indestructibility. But Liu Sheng's punch landed and hit the blue crystal wall. The blue crystal wall only hindered it a little. Then click, click, and shattered. Then there is the void. Black white black white. Repeatedly and alternately, the void starburst splashed like debris. A thick breath of destruction poured out. Break limit 4 times. Gray's expression was shocked, before she could make any more reactions. Liu Sheng's fist had already driven straight into her body. The 5 fingers suddenly opened, clanging like a knife. He grabbed her neck suddenly and lifted her whole life up. In an instant, the huge starry sky was as silent as the arena, and all the hustle and bustle went away quietly at this moment. Everyone stared blankly at the scene in front of them. Overbearing and stalwart, Liu Sheng, who was as handsome as a sun god, pinched Gray with one hand. With an indifferent expression, the golden flames flowing from his body crazily swept and devoured the latter's blue flames. Many people subconsciously stood up from their positions, with expressions of disbelief on their faces. On a certain spaceship, a middle-aged man with short red hair and an appearance somewhat similar to Gray's looked dazed, as if he couldn't believe his eyes, and his expression was absent for a moment. In the highest spectator seat, the faces of all the speakers were also moved. Then, everyone heard Liu Sheng speak calmly. I said long ago that if you want to verify immortality, you should be prepared to shed blood. It seems that you are not fully prepared yet. As he spoke, Liu Sheng pushed forward with his right hand. As if throwing away a pile of garbage, Gray was thrown out of the asteroid competition ring in a casual gesture. The scene was quiet for a few seconds, and the referee in charge of judging came back to his senses, and hurriedly announced loudly, Yamu Star District, Liu Sheng wins. Boom! Accompanied by this announcement, the entire starry sky exploded at once. The previous hustle and bustle returned again. Countless people stood up emotionally, shouting loudly, discussing the name of Liu Sheng. Grass. Instant kill with one punch. Liu Sheng killed Gray with one punch. Level 10 and second, is this the power of the immortal bloodline? It's too perverted. Just kidding, otherwise how can it be called an immortal bloodline that comes out once in a million years? Haha, I won. I won the bet. Long live the immortal class. Liu Sheng is my father. 1. The host of the competition also took the microphone and roared loudly, emotionally, as if he had added a younger brother and sister to him. Incredible! It's unbelievable! Unexpectedly, Gray, who had been promoted to level 12, would not be able to defeat Liu Sheng in the end. One punch, Liu Sheng, who showed his true strength, defeated Gray with just one punch. Is this the legendary immortal bloodline? God, this game is getting more and more exciting, I can't wait for the players to go on. In the highest spectator seats, the faces of all the speaker-level figures were also filled with shock. Break the limit 4 times. Can you break the limit 4 times at level 10? Honey, I can't even do it. When Liu Sheng is promoted to 12, what level should his combat power soar to? Dunlop and the Yamu Star District Law Enforcement Chief Frontline Director 3 people were discussing with everyone, with smiles on their faces. They felt as refreshed as Xiaotian drank a glass of heart-cooling ice water. Dunlop couldn't help it, and said to the chairman of the Hill Star District with a smile, it seems that Liu Sheng is still qualified to fight against Monroe. What you expect to see will eventually be seen. The chairman of the Hill Star District had an ugly expression on his face, and he said with a fake smile, yes, it's really amazing. But Monroe is not comparable to mere Gray. Hee. As he spoke, he turned his head away, leaving only the back of Dunlop's head. Dunlop wasn't angry either, still smiling all over his face. So far, Liu Sheng has brought him too many surprises, far exceeding his original expectations. Liu Sheng's expression was calm from the beginning to the end. After defeating Gray, he walked off the field step by step. Every time he took a step, the gorgeous golden patterns on his body and the sun totem faded away. Brilliant as the light of the midday sun, the golden hair is gradually fading. Liu Sheng felt that there were eyes on him from all around the competition field, some were full of shock, some were full of fear, some were full of awe, some. It is a strong fighting spirit and coldness. Following this gaze, Liu Sheng saw a man with white hair like a glacier waterfall staring at him intently. Monroe. When he looked over, Monroe not only did not back down, Kangxi was even more intense. This gaze made Liu Sheng feel as if he was being targeted by a pervert, and felt a little uncomfortable, so he turned away with a frown. There was also a gaze that contained some strange meaning that Liu Sheng could not describe. He tried to search, but found nothing. As soon as Liu Sheng left the stage, he saw Far's face full of excitement, and even a trace of admiration. As Liu Sheng's guide in the starry sky in the past, Far now has to look at him with an upward gaze. Think about the time you have experienced before and after, not even a year. Far couldn't help but be filled with emotion. The world is really wonderful. 0 Looking for flowers. Liu Sheng sat down casually in the waiting area, and not long after he sat down, he received a video call from Liu Qinghe. As soon as the connection was made, Liu Qinghe's face that couldn't be more excited jumped out. Brother, you were really, wife, handsome. Are you really my dear brother? How the hell did that blonde hair come about? You must teach me later. It's so cool. Liu Sheng was talking to Liu Qinghe with a smile, and suddenly felt the inexplicable gaze from before appearing again. He suddenly turned his head to look, but only saw the peaceful starry sky. Who the hell? Liu Sheng frowned slightly, his eyes were a little cold. The next time, the game continued. After Liu Sheng defeated Gray, who was at level 12, with the 10th level body, although the follow-up competition was exciting, there was no one that surpassed him. Liu Sheng in the golden crow form brought too much shock and amazement to everyone. Until the second round of the finals, many people were still immersed in it and have not recovered for a long time. 0. And that unexplained gaze also kept appearing. This gaze made Liu Sheng extremely uncomfortable. It gave him a feeling as if he was being targeted by someone as a prey. But every time he tried to look for it, the gaze disappeared without a trace, as if it had never appeared before. Under the harassment of that gaze, Liu Sheng also became slightly irritable. If you can't be found by me, it means that your mental strength is still higher than mine. My spiritual cultivation is at the peak of level 11, and anyone who can surpass me must reach at least level 12. Who in the field can reach level 12? Except for the speaker, law enforcement chief and others who are in the highest spectator seats. There are only Monroe and Qian Yushu. Monroe's interest in himself was so obvious that it could be ruled out. So. Liu Sheng looked at a certain location thoughtfully. I saw a young man in casual attire with refined temperament sitting quietly there. The young man kept his eyes on the competition stage, his expression was flat, and he never glanced at Liu Sheng from the beginning to the end. It seems that there is nothing in this world that interests him anymore. Is it him? Liu Sheng frowned, thinking. Soon, he finished thinking. Whether or not. Liu Sheng secretly made up his mind, if you encounter it, kill him first and then talk about it. It's better to kill the wrong than to let it go. Anyway, although this is a competition, casualties during the competition are also allowed. However, this gaze reminded Liu Sheng a little bit. Compared to the 12th level powerhouse, my mental power seems to be really shortcoming. So. You have to improve it quickly. As Liu Sheng thought, he stretched out his hand and gently tapped the center of his brow. In the depths of his mind, there was a gift from a fellow disciple from another universe. At this moment, quietly unsealed. 508 New Myth vs. Old Legend, 2. The second round of the final. 7-4. Still in the form of lottery. The identity cards of the remaining 7 people in the field light up, and then on the big screen in the starry sky. Liu Sheng was slightly taken aback when he saw the result of the lottery. It turned out he had no rivals. In other words, he got an empty lottery this round. Bye. So lucky. Liu Sheng subconsciously glanced in the direction of the highest spectator seats, thinking, could it be a secret operation? At the same time, the most palace watcher. Dunlop, is your organizer operating in the dark? All the chairpersons of the star districts looked at Dunlop with strange eyes. Dunlop didn't look sideways, with an expression of "Don't look at me like that, I didn't do anything. It doesn't matter whether it is a black box operation or not. Anyway, it's the difference between playing one more game and one less." Liu Sheng looked at the results of other people's draws again. The two opponents who are most worthy of 623 betting, Monroe and Qian Yushu, are reasonably staggered, and they are facing the top seeds of the other two star regions. There is a high probability that we will meet in the final. Liu Sheng didn't intend to continue watching the game, so he told Far beside him, "I'll sleep for a while, wake me up after the game." Ahoy! Far nodded subconsciously, then snapped back to his senses, and looked at Liu Sheng in astonishment. "The final is coming soon, are you still sleeping? Can you still sleep at this time?" Titanium True Body. On the asteroid competition stage, a young man wearing a black battle suit with a wild appearance and temperament yelled. The black battle suit on his body burst open, and an incomparable silver light shot out from his majestic body. After a while, the young man's whole body was covered with brilliant silver, including his hair, eyes, cause. The whole person is silvery, like a human figure made entirely of titanium alloy. His aura also became powerful and explosive. The corner of the young man's mouth was raised, his face showed an expression of excitement and madness, and his fists slammed into his chest, making a sonorous and powerful impact sound. "Monroe, I lost to you 150 years ago. Now my titanium pole avatar is finally completed, back to..." Before the young man finished speaking, the silver rings in his eyes suddenly shrank. A Sanyan figure appeared in front of him. Roar! The young man roared and punched the figure violently. A dazzling silver light burst out from the huge fist, like a small silver sun. But the next second, the sun goes out. A big white and slender hand tightly grasped his fist, and all the power of the fist poured into it, but it was like a mud cow falling into the sea, without any waves. The young man stared blankly at his fist, his face lost for a moment. Then, he felt a numbness. Opening his eyes wide, he saw a terrifying snow-white cold current climbing crazily up from his fist. Wherever the white cold current passed, the silver titanium bodies cracked one after another. The young man's face showed horror, and he blurted out in disbelief, "How is this possible?" Corroded by the cold air, a tattered silver body flew out of the arena. Monroe, with hair like a waterfall of ice, stood proudly in the void, his cold gaze reflected the starry sky through the big screen. Many people looked at these eyes, felt a deep chill from their hearts, and lowered their heads involuntarily. Monroe scanned the audience like a king walking out of a glacier, and his eyes fell on a young man who seemed to be sleeping with his eyes closed. His eyes froze slightly. But he quickly returned to normal, and walked down the stage with a soft snort. When Monroe left the field, the atmosphere in the star field that seemed to be frozen by the cold suddenly thawed out, and countless people stood up and shouted Luo's name. Sen Luo Sword Prison. On the fighting stage, Qian Yushu, who was dressed casually, shot out golden swords with a length of 10,000 meters. Countless sword gangs danced around the opponent quickly, forming a ring of sword wheels, releasing a terrifying air of cutting and strangling. In just a few breaths, Bing Yushu's opponent was forced to surrender. He is also the #1 genius in one-star area, and the owner of the extraordinary life physique of Huiyu 9 stars. But when he stumbled out of the sword wheel, his body was covered in cuts and bruises, and there was not a single piece of good flesh on his body, as if he had been cut alive, which was shocking. Qian Yushu loosened his 10 fingers, and all the golden swords in the competition stage dissipated. He turned his head and met a pair of sharp eyes. Facing the sharp and cold gaze of the other party, Qian Yushu inadvertently avoids and staggers. He was like a hermit who had nothing to do with the world, stepping down very low-key. But no one saw that during the process of his stepping down, his eyes seemed to linger on someone in a certain direction in a certain position in the waiting area. Occasionally reveals a beast-like ferocious and greedy light. Unfortunately, it disappeared soon. Lu Sheng, Lu Sheng. Far called a few times, but saw that the latter was unmoved. He hesitated and stretched out his hand, considering whether to forcibly wake up the other party. At this moment, Lu Sheng, who was sitting on the chair, suddenly opened his eyes. There seemed to be a flash of colored light in an instant, and Far appeared in a trance for a moment. When he came back to his senses, he saw that Lu Sheng had already stood up. Is the second round over? Fall quickly stood up, nodded and said, the third round will be here soon, and the results of the lottery are out. Lu Sheng's expression moved slightly, and he looked up at the big screen. I saw 2 sets of results displayed on the big screen. Quniashu from Zilan Star District vs. Tiger Roar from Menyuyun Star District. Sub-Jupiter Sector Lu Sheng vs Hill Sector. Monroe. Monroe. Feeling something in Lu Sheng's heart, he subconsciously looked in a certain direction in the waiting area. It just so happened that a figure was also standing up from his position, looking at him with burning eyes. The calm and cold eyes collided in the void, as if there were sparks splashing. From the moment the result of the lottery came out, the starry sky was already immersed in a carnival. The Interstellar Martial Arts Genius Exchange Contest has finally reached its climax at this moment. Lu Sheng vs Monroe. An immortal bloodline owner who comes out once in a million years. A star region with a great reputation, who can be called the overlord of the younger generation. At this time, on the ranking list of winning percentage on the big screen in the starry sky, the two are also ranked first and second respectively. It can be said that the battle between Lu Sheng and Monroe. It is more exciting than the final. In a sense, this battle is almost equivalent to the final battle. Who can win can almost be regarded as leading the final result. Ice Monroe. Monroe. Lu Sheng. The shouts of hundreds of millions of spectators 5.1 shook the starry sky, covering up the voice of the contest host. In such an atmosphere, even the most calm person will be infected unknowingly, join it, and the blood will boil. Lu Sheng and Monroe walked slowly towards the asteroid competition field. Every time they took a step, the fighting spirit of the two of them increased by 1 point, and the atmosphere in the starry sky became more enthusiastic. Not only ordinary people, but even the speaker-level figures sitting in the highest spectator seats sat upright in the face of the upcoming battle, leaning forward slightly, as if wanting to see more, be clear and careful. And as the chairman of their respective star districts, Dunlop and the chairperson of the Hill Star District also looked at each other in unison, seemingly calm as usual. There was already an undercurrent surging underneath, and the breath of silent competition spread rapidly in the air. This battle is also the pinnacle battle between the new myth and the old legend. It is highly anticipated and highly anticipated. 509 lost on the spot, Lu Sheng and number 039, S weirdness, 3. Lu Sheng set foot on the asteroid competition field. Then he glanced in the direction of the white hole shuttle. This is his habit. Looking across the distance, through the shell of the white hole shuttle spacecraft, Lu Sheng saw his parents, younger sister Lu Qinghe, Dong Qingxiu, Lin Zhenjiu, and others. Each of them seemed a little nervous, especially the mother Zheng Yufen, with a deep worry lingering between her brows. With new breakthroughs and new harvests in spiritual power, Lu Sheng suddenly discovered that from such a distance, he could still capture the fluctuations in mental power naturally revealed by his mother Zheng Yufen and read out what his mother was thinking at this time. Why did Xiao Sheng fight this white-headed man? This white-headed man is so fierce, I don't know if Xiao Sheng can beat him. Hey, God bless Xiao Sheng, he must win. Sure enough, it was almost as expected. Liu Sheng's heart was a bit complicated. No matter how powerful he showed, before the battle started, his mother would be very worried. What is Dad thinking? Liu Sheng subconsciously turned to his father Liu Haihei. This is the son of my Liu Dahai. Liu Dahai, can give birth to such an amazing son. 02, Liu Dahai, are so awesome. After the competition, you should be able to go back to Azure Star. Shall we repair the ancestral grave of our old Liu family? Should we build the 7th floor or the 8th floor? After the game, I will discuss it with Xiao Sheng. Liu Sheng read his younger sister Liu Qinghe's heart again, and it was quite different from what he thought, and they were all cheering words. Then go to Dong Qingxiu. Liu Sheng was a little hesitant, whether he should capture Dong Qingxiu's inner fluctuations. But driven by curiosity, I took a secret glance. As a result, the news he got shocked Liu Sheng so much that he almost stood there in a daze. What are you still dawdling about? It was as if two pieces of ice were rubbing against each other, and it sounded in Liu Sheng's ears. Liu Sheng slowly recovered from his absence, turned his head little by little with a strange expression, and looked at Monroe who was standing opposite him with an expressionless face. Monroe stared at him, narrowed his eyes slightly, and said in a cold tone, "Don't you know that being distracted in battle is one of the 10 things that are extremely disrespectful to your opponent?" But Liu Sheng had a strange expression, with an inexplicable light in his eyes. The corners of his mouth curled up unnaturally, as if thinking of something very happy. He didn't listen to Monroe's words at all. His eyes were still wandering. Monroe's eyes turned cold little by little, and he said indifferently, "It seems that I have to teach you what respect is." With that said, Luo took a step forward abruptly. Call. Like an ice skate slashing, leaving a brilliant ice blue trail in the void, Monroe suddenly appeared in front of Liu Sheng. He punched Liu Sheng hard in the head. Liu Sheng subconsciously raised his hand to resist. But before touching it, the arm was eroded and frozen by the cold air in the area. His movements became sluggish for an instant, and Monroe punched him hard in the chest. Subscribe to Chinese Novel Audio Wave. Boom! Liu Sheng retreated dozens of kilometers in the void. The terrifying impact pulled the void to make a series of crisp sounds like crackling. Wait for Liu Sheng to stop completely. His hands were already on his chest, completely covered by a thick layer of frost. Kika. The frost shattered, and large chunks of ice slag fell. The 80,000 immortal cells in Liu Sheng's body should vibrate and make a roaring sound to expel the cold air. But Liu Sheng's eyes were still in a state of absence. He was clearly being beaten. The smile on his face grew bigger and bigger. As expected of an immortal-level extraordinary life physique. Monroe's eyes were like ice diamonds, and he praised, "An ordinary person would have been frozen by my killing ice flow. This is interesting." Monroe twisted his neck, and his body made a crisp sound. The figure flickered and continued to pounce. The two figures fought fiercely together. But to say it was a fierce battle, it would be better to say that Monroe beat Liu Sheng unilaterally. He has been pressing and beating Liu Sheng. Apart from all kinds of subconscious parrying and resistance, Liu Sheng didn't even throw a single punch. Monroe palmed into a knife, tearing open 3 layers of void with one palm, and slashed fiercely at Liu Sheng's shoulder and neck without fancy. Liu Sheng fell like a meteorite and hit the ground of the asteroid with a boom. Monroe did not pursue, but frowned and said coldly, "How about your transformation state? How about your strength to break the limit 4 times? Why didn't you transform?" Below, Liu Sheng slowly flew out from the ear hole. The figure is a bit embarrassed, but the expression is still immersed in a kind of great happiness, joy. Judging from the current situation and the fact that he has been beaten unilaterally before, this expression is really a bit weird. Anger welled up in Monroe's eyes, and he rushed forward violently. Boom! A larger mushroom cloud exploded on the asteroid's ground. What the hell is Liu Sheng doing? The people watching the battle also looked puzzled. Why didn't he fight back? Why didn't he transform? Like when he fought Grey before. He seems to have fallen into a state of trance, his consciousness is wandering, and now only his physical instinct is left to support the battle. What a mess! Many viewers scolded their mothers one after another. In this much anticipated battle, I wanted to witness the ultimate collision between the immortal bloodline and the legend of the Sunday. As a result, one party was out of shape and didn't even fight back. Isn't this disappointing? What the hell is bro doing? Hit him! Hit that Monroe! In the White Hole Shuttler, Liu Qingyun was so anxious that he started stamping his feet. Zheng Yufen and Liu Dehai also looked anxious and worried. Zheng Yufen couldn't help but look away, not daring to look any further. Dong Qingxiu took 2 steps forward, raising a hand as if she wanted to touch the embarrassed figure. In the end, he just let it go slowly with a worried look on his face. In the highest auditorium, Dunlop frowned and stared at Liu Sheng in the field, with a look of incomprehension in his eyes. The chairman of the Hill Star District also had a somewhat astonished expression. He turned his head and glanced at Dunlop with a strange look on his face. He wanted to say something, but he still didn't say it. It's just that his expression became much more relaxed, and a faint smile began to hang on the corner of his mouth. 420. Everyone watched helplessly. Liu Sheng kept retreating in embarrassment under Monroe's pressure with a look of wandering in the sky. Even though he has been pressed and beaten all the time, he still looks extremely happy. What good thing happened to me to be so happy? Many people are gnashing their teeth. They tried their best but couldn't figure it out. Only Liu Sheng himself knew the answer. Never mind. At this time, Monroe, who knocked Liu Sheng back with a punch, stopped. He stood in the void, condescendingly looking down at Liu Zhan, who was covered in bruises and his combat uniform was torn to pieces. There was an undisguised look of disappointment in his eyes. Shaking his head, he said coldly and expressionlessly, "There is no need to continue the meaningless battle. So, let's end it." After speaking, Monroe trembled slightly, and a strange wave emanated from his body. This fluctuation made the audience have a sense of déjà vu, but for a while, they couldn't remember where they felt it. Only a small number of people realized what kind of sign this was, and their faces were moved. The next breath, countless brilliant light spots appeared in the void behind Monroe. Just like Grey before. These points of light quickly converged into a splendid galaxy. But unlike Grey, the galaxy drawn by Monroe, there are 2 ways. Moreover, as soon as it appeared, it crashed into his body with a bang, completely becoming one with him. 510 hands stained with immortal blood? Oh, you deserve it too? 4. Grade 12. Before the game, countless people rumored and speculated about the possibility. Finally confirmed at this moment. Monroe has really bought into the 12th. And it's not the same as Grey's before, entering the 12th for the first time. He has completely stepped into the 12th level, and he has already completed the 2nd level body tempering according to his appearance. More importantly, Monroe rules the galaxy in 12 traction into body. It's 2 ways. This also means that Monroe has reached at least 2 martial arts skills to the peak of the 5 realms, which is enough to induce the rule of the galaxy to quench the body. And by fusing the 2 rules of galaxy, Monroe's strength will also reach an unprecedented height. In terms of realm strength alone, it is at least twice that of an ordinary 12th level like Grey. In an instant, countless spectators were moved by the huge starry sky arena. Even the 12th level speaker figures in the highest spectator seats couldn't help but gasp in amazement at this moment. Under 1,000 years old, 2 rules of melting the galaxy into the body. In addition to his own supernatural life physique of the sun level. Monroe's strength may have surpassed ours. It's amazing, it's amazing. The smile on the face of the speaker of the Hill Star district has completely bloomed. He raised his chin slightly, turned his head and glanced in Dunlop's direction with a victorious attitude, and said, "If you want me to say that it doesn't matter whether Liu Sheng is in the state or not. Because the outcome is predetermined. The difference is only the process of his defeat by Monroe." Dunlop was expressionless, and gave the chairman of the Hill Star district a cold look. "Is it too early to say such things now? Liu Sheng hasn't lost yet." Hee. The chairman of the Hill Star district laughed twice, and didn't say anything, just shook his head and turned around. At this time, the aura on Monroe's body with 2 regular galaxies entering his body has climbed to an unprecedented height. His hair, which was like a waterfall of ice, had grown violently and hung down to his waist. The tall and strong body seems to have completely transformed into an extremely cold source of ice in the universe. All the time, there was a surge of terrifying cold air all around. This cold air completely covered and froze the entire asteroid competition field in just a few breaths, turning it into a huge ice ball. And the cold air continued to spread into the starry sky. Pieces of white territory visible to the naked eye spread out, and there were traces of the void being cracked by the cold air. At this moment, those legends about Monroe that have been circulated outside seem to be no longer exaggerated. Some people say that Monroe once froze a living star. So powerful! Maybe the stars will really be frozen alive. At this time, Monroe is like a king who has stepped out of the frost prison. His skin and eyes completely turned into a forest white color, abandoning all emotion and temperature. Staring indifferently at Liu Sheng below, he said lightly, "To show respect for the immortal bloodline, I am willing to let you be defeated by my strongest punch. Kneel down and praise, Liu Sheng." As he spoke, Monroe slowly raised his right hand. "Spread your 5 fingers, and make proposals bit by bit." A large swath of turbulent cold air gushed out, all gathered in this punch. This punch represented Monroe's absolute domination over the extremely cold field, as if even time had been frozen. Seeing this punch, countless people's eyes quickly glanced at Liu Sheng, who was still in a daze below, and a sentence popped out subconsciously in their minds: "Liu Sheng is over." It is indeed over. Although Liu Sheng has an immortal level bloodline, he has already defeated Gray, who is at the 12th level, by strengthening his strength. However, compared to Monroe, who has 2 rules of galaxy entering the body, his strength on the bright side is still at a disadvantage. The odds are small. Happily not yet. After Monroe's punch, many people even worried whether Liu Sheng, who was absent-minded, would be killed by Monroe's punch. Shua! Monroe punches. This fist stirred all the cold air in the entire starry sky, and the fist slipped down like a white shining meteor. Boom! Such an asteroid is bigger than the arena. It was directly pierced by Monroe's punch. The terrifying cold air surged and overflowed like an angry dragon. The asteroid that has long been turned into a hockey puck makes a crisp sound of click, click from the center of Bai Arena. It was actually cracking and disintegrating. Well underscore. In the white hole traveler, Liu Qinghe's beautiful eyes widened, she covered her mouth, and almost came out. With Zhang Yufen in his arms, Liu Dahai took 2 steps forward abruptly, staring fixedly at the explosion center where the ice dust was everywhere and the energy was surging, but he couldn't say a word. Dong Qingxiu next to her looked quite calm, but her hands were already clenched tightly without knowing it. At this moment, many people couldn't help standing up from their positions, staring at the point where Monroe punched with wide eyes, trying to see the final result clearly. But the power of Monroe's punch was too terrifying. It not only shattered the asteroid, but also shattered the void, turning it into a piece of rag. Countless messy energies surged in the void, and it was impossible to detect the situation inside. Never mind. Someone waved his hand and sighed, "It's nothing to see, Liu Sheng must be seriously injured. If he doesn't die, this battle is over." Many people nodded in agreement. Even the referee in charge of this match is hesitating whether to announce the result directly. Just when many people close to Liu Sheng were anxious and worried, and those who supported Monroe were elated, and everyone thought that all the dust had settled. In the broken asteroid competition field, in the vast and extremely cold white air, brilliant golden beams of light burst out from it. Boom! Dazzling light shines out. The heat wave is sweeping, and the golden light is shining. Countless white air subsided. Under the watchful eyes of everyone, the scene at the center of the battle group was finally fully revealed. I saw a body covered with great sun totems, with brilliant blonde hair, and a handsome and stalwart body like a god of stars. He crossed his hands, formed a strange posture, and firmly held a crystal clear, ice diamond-like fist in his palm. Although the posture is slightly embarrassed, but there is an unprecedented high-spirited will soaring into the sky, swaying the starry sky. There was a billowing heat wave all over his body, and Monroe, who was transformed into a source of extreme cold, stepped up and down, maintaining a confrontational posture. One fire and one ice. The shock of the scene made countless people stunned for a moment. Liu Sheng. Shua. Those who were worried and anxious, the moment they saw this scene clearly, their eyes and faces were full of surprise, and they were overjoyed. And the audience went into a commotion. Catch it! It's really strange that Liu Sheng came back to his senses. In the center of the battle group, the blonde-haired Liu Sheng showed apologetic expression on his face, and said, "I'm so sorry, Wang Zhao, I was a little lost when I heard about the happy things before." Monroe retracted his fist suddenly, and quickly distanced himself from Liu Sheng. His eyes were fixed on Liu Sheng, and a throbbing light came out of them. Good good! Unprecedented joy appeared on Monroe's glacier-like face. He laughed and said, "This is the immortality I want to see. Only when this kind of immortality is defeated can I enjoy it." Monroe looked at his hands, and said with a smile on his face, "I never thought that I, Monroe, would be able to dye my hands with real immortal blood today. What a surprise!" Listening to Monroe's words, Liu Sheng's eyes flickered. Then step by step, he walked up from the bottom, and every step he took, the golden light and heat waves on his body surged. When he reached the same height as Monroe, he had become the largest and most dazzling source of light and heat in this starry sky. 80,000 immortal cells that ignited the fire of divinity were shouting and roaring. Liu Sheng looked at Monroe in front of him, twitched the corner of his mouth, and smiled. "Hands stained with immortal blood? Ha, you deserve it. Change. 511 Immortal Second Combustion, Main Sequence Star Form. 1. Liu Sheng got a glimpse of Dong Qingxiu's mind. Knowing the greatest joy in my life, my mood was agitated, and I fell into a kind of dazed joy and joy, wandering away from my mind. So much so that he lost his mind during the battle and was beaten violently by Monroe. But when Monroe showed his peak state of level 12 and hit with all his strength, threatening his own life, he finally came back to his senses. Liu Sheng stepped forward and punched Monroe. The 80,000 immortal cells that ignited the fire of divinity in the body screamed and roared. The 80,000 star seeds stimulated densely packed tiny stars on his punch, and the stars surrounded them, forming a terrifying melting pot. A three-legged divine bird, the golden crow, was bred in the furnace. The golden crow flapped its wings, setting off a billowing heat wave. The temperature of this heat wave has long exceeded the temperature of the real star's surface. It was just a sweep, and the surrounding frost hell, which had been completely ruled by Monroe, began to collapse. The Ice Age is over, and now it's Season 5. Liu Sheng roared loudly, completely different from the dazed and absent-minded appearance before. After returning to his state, he seemed to be injected with an unprecedented brand new power. The Golden Crow, who is also in perfect martial arts, is more wild, domineering, and high-spirited than when he was fighting against Grey before. Liu Sheng fisted the Golden Crow, and with one punch, he directly turned the star 197 space of the battle group into a field of light and heat. Good. Faced with this punch, Monroe was not surprised but happy, laughed and punched in the same way. Large expanses of frost and cold surged out of his body. With Monroe's fist as the original heart, dozens of thick white cold currents visible to the naked eye were formed, just like a dragon. 2 punches. The golden crow and the ice dragon collided, and ice and fire intertwined. The 2 extreme forces bit together, directly mixing this piece of void into a paste. The first layer of void is completely shattered, the second layer of void is largely disintegrated, and the third layer of void is densely covered with cracks. The 4th floor of the void can barely be regarded as intact. All the onlookers stared dryly. The intensity of this battle has completely exceeded their imagination. Those contestants who had just been eliminated in the waiting area felt their scalps tingling and their hearts beating faster. With such terrifying power, even the overflowing power can cause the effect of breaking the limit 3 times. If they join the battle group, they are afraid that they will be blasted into useless people if they meet each other. The otherworldly Qian Yushu looked calm, but another contestant who was lucky enough to enter the top 4 looked tense, and his back was covered in cold sweat that no one else could see. On the highest spectator stand, a group of senior figures of the congregation, also stared intently, and deep amazement flashed in their eyes from time to time. Come again. After one blow, Monroe's fighting spirit was fully aroused. White hair dancing wildly like a waterfall, he leaned forward, and then punched the land area. The ice-like flow attached to this punch is more than 10 times more than before. Reached an astonishing number of hundreds. The power is also more than 10 times greater. There was a golden glow in Liu Sheng's eyes, and without flinching, he also punched him. The 5th season of the Starry Sky, the ancient golden crow sings. Fist. Boom. The 4th layer of void was also overwhelmed and shattered. But this time, Liu Sheng's figure staggered backwards out of the center of the battle. In the void, frost rises, fiercely devouring light and heat. The battlefield, which was originally divided into ice and fire, suddenly became mostly white. Obviously, Liu Sheng lost this time. And Monroe's aura is still climbing up endlessly. There are more and more white cold currents around him, more and more. The shortest ones are thousands of meters in size, and the longest ones even reach tens of thousands of meters. Like tens of thousands of ice dragons, entrenched in the starry sky, roaring and roaring. Monroe stood in the center surrounded by tens of thousands of ice dragons, looked down at Liu Sheng like a glacier king, and sneered, "Is it only to this extent?" Faced with Monroe's provocation, Liu Sheng's eyes flickered slightly, and he took a deep breath. Then he said calmly, "Your way is good, but you can fill my gap. I want it." Monroe froze for a moment, then frowned. Just as he was about to say something more, he heard Liu Sheng's calm voice already ringing in his ears. Second burn. Boom. A more surging and more intense heat wave breath burst out from Liu Sheng's body than before. At this time, his appearance will undergo a new change. The originally brilliant golden hair was dyed white, every root is bright. The sun totem tattoo on his body also changed from pure gold to the color of Bajan. The Bajan-colored sun totem extends out more gorgeous lines. Make all the totems as a whole tend to a more stable and orderly state. Compared with before, Liu Sheng is like a star god bred by stars, from an unstable growth stage. One step into a stable mature period. At this time, the divine flame ignited by the 80,000 immortal cells in Liu Sheng's body also changed from gold to Bajan color. More potentials have been tapped and developed, reaching an unprecedented terrifying height. This is the deeper state of Liu Sheng Shiquan martial arts golden crow form. The divine cells are ignited for the second time, just like the original star enters the stage of the main sequence star. Hence the name. Second burning. 2 burning immortal, main sequence stellar body. Turn into a Bajan-colored sun flame. Liu Sheng became more and more like a living star god, completely like an extraordinary life form walking out of the stars. He stretched his body to his heart's content. Every gesture of the hand gives people an aura of extreme dignity and congenital nobility. Thrilling noble beauty. Everyone was fixedly looking at the transformed Liu Sheng, feeling like witnessing a miracle in the starry sky. Liu Sheng quietly looked at Minro in front of him. Where Beijan's eyes fell, Beijan's colored flames spread wildly and recklessly, because of the cold wandering problem. A new photothermal field is being rebuilt. Now it's my turn to say. Liu Sheng said lightly, come again. When the last word fell, Liu Sheng's figure had already appeared in front of Minro. Monroe's pupils shrunk slightly, and large patches of white tea were reflected in his eyes. These Beijan colors gather and transform into a Beijan-colored three-legged divine bird. Beak lightly. Monroe subconsciously raised his hand to resist, and tens of thousands of ice dragons gathered together. Punch him up! But in an instant, I felt a sharp tingling pain and a strong burning sensation. Monroe's pupils narrowed again, and he watched helplessly as the frost and cold flow attached to his fist melted rapidly under the Beijan flame. This is a scene that has never been seen before. Monroe looked moved and blurted out in disbelief. How is this possible? Unwilling to growl, he said, my icy cold has once frozen a real star. A flat voice rang in Monroe's ear. A man once shot an arrow at the sun at sunset, and when night fell, he thought he had shot down the Sunday. Beijan is brilliant, and Liu Sheng, who is like a god, appears in front of Monroe. Looking down at him, with a natural and casual look on his face, he spread his 5 fingers and grabbed his face hard. Tell me, isn't it ridiculous? Boom! The next moment, the overwhelming Beijan flames completely engulfed Monroe. 512 The third supernatural power, Jinyu. The power of stars. Break. 2. The extremely bright Beijan-colored flame completely swept the starry sky where the battle group was located. The remaining cold air was swallowed up. The asteroid test field that was shattered by Monroe's breakthrough before had been burned to ashes long ago. The field no longer exists, and this place is completely reduced to a Beijan field ravaged by flames. Immortal and second combustion, Liu Sheng, whose star supreme body has entered the main sequence star stage, released the Beijan flame temperature to an incomparably astonishing height. 100,000 degrees? Million degrees? Liu Sheng doesn't know, but he knows that if he gives himself enough time now, he can easily melt a planet. There is no freezing cold that can survive at such a temperature. At least, Monroe's icy can't. While thinking, there was a loud boom. Liu Sheng's 5 fingers landed, and the place where Beijan's flame was wrapped, the flame exploded suddenly. A white figure quickly flew out from the flames. And only Monroe. At this time, only a thin layer of cold air remained around Monroe, and a large amount of water mist was formed in contact with the high temperature of the Beijan flame. Although the water mist was not enough to wet Monroe's clothes and hair, it also made him look a little embarrassed. But it's just embarrassment. 2 galaxies floated on Monroe's body, as if 2 gorgeous bands of light hung on his shoulders. The regular galaxy has incredible power, which isolates all the flames and high temperatures around it. It made him walk out from the explosion point of the Beijan flame, but he was almost unscathed. Monroe's expression was frighteningly cold, like a glacier that had never melted for thousands of years. He walked out of the flame step by step with a gloomy face, stared at Liu Sheng and said, "Is this the true appearance of the immortal bloodline? I admit that I underestimated you, and I also admit how powerful the immortal bloodline is. Unfortunately, you are only level 10 after all. After all, the result of failure cannot be avoided, et." Before Monroe finished speaking, his pupils shrank suddenly. A blazing light appeared in his eyes, which rapidly enlarged. "That's a fist." Beijan's fist hit Monroe's cheek hard, blasting him like a cannonball dozens of kilometers away. Boom! The loud sound made by the shattering of the fourth floor made the hearts of all the onlookers tremble violently, and their eyelids twitched wildly. Liu Sheng appeared at the position where Monroe had just stood, slowly retracting his fists. His posture was pretentious, and his brows were calm and peaceful. "It's all for this sake, why are you pretending to me?" As Liu Sheng said, Beijan's eyes flashed slightly, and his figure crossed again. After catching up with Monroe's flying figure, he punched like a dragon. Every punch firmly grasps the veins of the heaven and the earth, and the fists shining with dazzling Beijan light remind people of meteorites passing by from time to time in the starry sky. Boom boom boom! The two figures wrestled together, smashing the void around them. It is somewhat similar to the original scene of the competition, but the position is completely reversed. Before it was Monroe pressing down on Liu Sheng and beating violently, now it was Liu Sheng who was catching Monroe and beating him wildly. Immortal Second Burning, entering the main sequence star stage. Liu Sheng. No matter the strength in all aspects has undergone earth-shaking changes, it has almost increased by more than 10 times on the original basis. This made him have an absolute crushing advantage over Monroe even in the front. Not only that. After entering the main sequence star stage, Liu Sheng seems to have reached a certain critical point. The inheritance of the way of stars belonging to Wang He in his mind showed signs of loosening again. As a result, when he beat Monroe violently with the 5 seasons boxing technique, Beijan's aura kept flashing in his mind. These auras prompted him to continuously perform the stroke of magic moves one after another, and the boxing techniques at the top of the 5 realms became more and more mysterious and sublime. Even Liu Sheng had a faint feeling of touching a higher level. That level is above the 5 realms. 6 realm skills. Just when Liu Sheng was immersed in this wonderful state, Monroe, who was suppressed extremely aggrieved and uncomfortable, finally let out an unwilling roar. Enough! Boom! Accompanied by this roar, an unprecedented and terrifying cold surged from Monroe's body. The turbulence of this cold current even overwhelmed Liu Sheng's Beijan flame for a short time, forcing Liu Sheng to step back a little bit. Monroe stood up. At this time, there was a billowing cold current all over his body all the time. It's as if a floodgate in the body has been completely opened. The thick and icy cold air covered Monroe's whole body in an instant, spread out, and forced back large areas of Beijan-colored flames. Freeze the starry sky! The void on the 4th floor was shattered, and obvious cracks appeared on the 5th floor. And this cold current is still venting crazily. The range of coverage is skyrocketing every minute and every second. 10 square kilometers. 100 square kilometers. 1,000 square kilometers. 10,000 square kilometers. 100,000, 1 million, 10 million. With Monroe as the center, almost 1/3 of the huge star field is covered by the white cold current. Some of the cold currents even spread to the seats of some parked spaceships, freezing the spaceships into lumps of ice. God! Countless people were moved by this drastic change and watched the scene before them in horror. The contestants, assistants, competition staff, competition host, and others in the waiting area were all forced back by the cold current. Finally, in the spectator seats, a group of speaker-level figures were also shocked, and stood up from their seats one after another. 0. Ask for flowers. Quick, help evacuate the audience immediately. As the host, Dunlop quickly issued instructions, and the speaker-level figures in other star regions were also concerned about the status of the audience and players in their star regions. In the midst of the tension, only the speaker of the Hill Star District had an unprecedented radiance on his face, his eyes were burning, and he murmured softly, "This is the real Monroe." Dunlop's face was gloomy and dignified, and he said nothing. Amidst the shock and alarm, the starry sky completely turned into an icy precipice. As far as the eye can see, there is a vast expanse of whiteness. Cold, dead silence, despair, extinction. Beijan's flames were almost extinguished by the cold current, and Liu Sheng was surrounded by frost. But he didn't seem to panic, he glanced around casually, with a calm expression. In the center of the ice absolute territory, surrounded by layers of cold currents, Monroe, who only revealed a pair of cold eyes, stared closely at Liu Sheng. 0. When he spoke, his voice carried a strong sense of ice coldness. You don't seem to understand the concept of the 12th level at all. It seems that it is not clear at all that the gap between the two great realms. How big is it? With that said, Monroe opened his hands and squeezed forward in a hugging gesture. It's all over. Yilang frozen prison kill. In an instant, the icy air covering most of the starry sky shrank suddenly. The entire ice absolute territory quickly closed towards the middle. The innumerable terrifying cold air crazily retracted, forming billions of ice-cold air currents that squeezed fiercely towards Liu Sheng's position. At this moment, everyone was shocked. Many people opened their eyes wide and even covered their mouths. Words cannot describe the horror and magnificence of this scene, and the brain seems to be frozen. In the highest spectator seat, the smile on the face of the speaker of the Hill Star district grew wider and wider, as if he was about to burst out laughing. Dunlop, the chief of law enforcement, and the chief of the front line had their pupils constricted, their bodies tensed up suddenly, and they had the urge to stop everything from happening immediately. People close to Liu Sheng in the White Hole shuttle were also extremely nervous. But at this moment, a voice broke through the restriction of the cold current and rang clearly in everyone's ears. Is there a big difference between the 10th level and the 12th level? I don't think so. Then, everyone sees. In the vast torrent of white cold air, the brilliant stars of the future suddenly spread out. In an instant, it gives people a dreamlike beauty. It's a pity that this dreaminess is fleeting. The gorgeous stars quickly gathered and shrunk to a fist shining with Beijan's light. Punch! The third supernatural power, Jinyu. The power of stars. Po Xiao. 513 breaking the limit 5 times is rude, I should have killed you if I knew it earlier. 3. Liu Sheng counted the number of martial arts he has mastered so far. A total of 112,753 types. The lowest of these martial arts has 7 levels, and many of them have 10 or even 11 levels. Every kind of martial arts will transform into a star. 120,753 stars gathered together. Formed around the Milky Way, like a small universe. A long time ago, Liu Sheng had the idea of sorting out these sects of martial arts and creating a supernatural power from them. After retreating and penanced for 3 cosmic months in the stars, he has already put the original inspiration into reality. Jinyu. The power of stars. Break. Liu Sheng's third supernatural power. A punch that gathered more than 112,000 martial arts wills. Extreme quantitative changes lead to shocking qualitative changes. There is no way to describe the greatness of this punch. In Liu Sheng, who has not turned on the martial arts state, even 487 needs to use all his strength to pull and control the mighty power contained in this punch. Be careful, there is a possibility of overturning at any time. When he successfully punched out the fist carrying a small piece of the galaxy surrounding it, the ending was basically doomed. There is absolutely nothing that can stop this punch. The rolling cold current was easily twisted into nothingness by the starlight. Monroe's move was originally to use the endless cold current to form a cage to strangle Liu Sheng. But now standing in front of Liu Sheng, the cage door controlled by Monroe himself. But a huge hole was easily torn open. Monroe hadn't had time to be shocked. This punch had already reached him. The thick icy white air attached to Monroe's body was blown away by the fist wind, revealing 2 brilliant regular galaxies. The fist continued to fall, gently touching the Milky Way. The Rule Galaxy just blocked it a little bit, and was smashed by the fist like a piece of paper. Then this punch carrying the power of the stars hit Monroe's chest firmly and unreservedly. Monroe's eyes widened for a moment, and he looked down at his chest in disbelief. Then, Kikakika underscore. The fifth layer of void also shattered. Boom! An incomparably huge white mushroom cloud burst out. The huge starry sky arena was silent. There was no sound between heaven and earth, and time seemed to stand still. Everyone fell into a state of trance. I stopped thinking and forgot to shout. Just staring blankly at the huge white mushroom cloud quietly expanding and spreading. The strong aura of destruction wiped out Monroe's Frost Absolute territory. In the waiting area, a young man in casual clothes with refined demeanor took a few steps forward. Looking at this extremely shocking scene, his eyes flickered, and for the first time, fluctuations appeared on Gu Jingwubo's face. In the highest spectator seat, a kind of speaker-level figures were all stunned. Some even couldn't help but open their mouths slightly, without realizing it. The chairman of the Hill Star District had a bright smile, but now it was completely frozen on his face, and he stood motionless in place. But Dunlop, the law enforcement chief, and the frontline chief, three people burst into bright brilliance from their eyes in an instant, and their expressions were moved and surprised. It took a long time before he spit out a few words slowly from his mouth. Grade 10. Break the limit 5 times. When all the whiteness disappeared in the starry sky, the scene at the center of the battle group finally appeared in front of everyone. After seeing the result of the battle group center, everyone was taken aback. Only Lu Sheng was left alone in the starry sky area. Lu Sheng stood in the pitch-black universe, with countless white and black starbursts intertwining around his body. The traces of the broken void on the 5th floor, the void on the 6th floor is revealed. The Bajan color on his body has faded, and he has returned to his original black hair and black eyes. Quietly, he looked down at his palm, as if there was something of great interest hidden there. It's a drop of blood. White blood. Lying quietly in Lu Sheng's palm. Lu Sheng stretched out a hand, and lightly flicked on the white ball. An illusory figure walked out from the white blood beads. Subscribe to Chinese novel audio wave. He is a middle-aged man with white hair like a waterfall, his appearance is like ice, but there is deep confusion and trance in his eyes. But the bewilderment quickly subsides and turns into extreme horror. He suddenly turned his head to look at Lu Sheng, subconsciously raised his hand and wanted to punch Lu Sheng with 10 punches. But halfway through the lift, I suddenly realized my current state. Looking at his translucent soul body, he stared blankly for a moment, lost his mind, and almost collapsed on the ground. Leave a little seed for you. Lu Sheng looked at Monroe, who was left with only a ray of spirit in front of him, and casually threw out the blood in his hand. Monroe caught it subconsciously, and stared blankly at the land monster. Next time, don't be so arrogant. Lu Sheng stretched out his hand and patted Monroe's shoulder, and said earnestly, the starry sky is huge, and there are many hanging people. Fortunately, you met me this time, and remember to leave a way for you to survive, next time it may not be possible. Such good luck. 0. Monroe's face was full of black lines and his eyes were complicated. He took a deep look at Lu Sheng, then turned around and quickly fled away. Don't you even know how to say thank you? It's impolite, I should have let you die earlier. Lu Sheng was a little upset. But I don't really care. The biggest gain from the battle with Monroe is that he has almost figured out Monroe's way, as well as the power system of the extraordinary life physique. Go back and use the power of the source to deduce and simulate in the dream space, which can make my Northern Suanwu true waterway more perfect. Monroe's way of extreme cold is still very desirable, pointing directly to the 3rd level. It just so happened that at the stage of Luang's emergence, he couldn't beat the 13th level zombie powerhouse at all, so he could only improve his Northern Suanwu true waterway in this way. This is also the reason why Lu Sheng specially reserved a trace of Monroe's soul and blood under the punch of Jinwu. The power of stars. Break. Otherwise, Monroe would have died long ago. The destructive power of breaking the limit 5 times. The 12th level powerhouse couldn't bear it at all. When Liu Sheng turned around and walked down from the battlefield that was no longer a battlefield, the impact of the result of the battle with Monroe spread slowly. It was just a little bit at the beginning, then more and more, intensified, and finally swept the entire starry sky. The entire star arena totally exploded. Shocked. Unspeakable 5.1 horror and shock. It was no less than 5 punches that broke the limit, hitting the hearts of everyone watching the battle. Who would have thought that with a gap of 2 big realms, with the 10th level body against the 12th level, the result would be Level 12 Monroe is completely defeated. The physical body is wiped out, leaving only a ray of soul. Almost completely dead. When the scene of Liu Sheng's punch just now began to replay on the starry sky screen, I don't know how many people watched it trembling and their scalps went numb. Grade 12. Grade 12. It's still 2 rules of galaxy tempering body, with the 12th level sun level bloodline. Just like that, he was punched by Liu Sheng. Really? Unbelievable. Extremely against the sky. It directly and completely broke countless people's cognition of martial arts and extraordinary life physique. 514 Flying Sword? We practice martial arts and you cultivate immortality? 1. Before Liu Sheng appeared, the 12 star regions included in this competition had never been immortal. At most, it is only a genius with an extraordinary life physique who has been born at the sun level. Everyone only knows immortality, but they don't know immortality. But after this battle, immortality gradually became clear. Liu Sheng officially define immortality. The inexplicable throbbing lingered in everyone's heart, and it was hard to dissipate for a long time. The impact of this battle is too huge for everyone, and it may take a long time to fully digest it. As a result, few people paid attention to the subsequent contest between Qian Yushu and another top 4 player. Qian Yushu's performance in this competition was quite eye-catching. The sword gang released traversed the starry sky, splitting the sky. There were very few cheerers. The vast majority of the audience is still immersed in the previous battle and has not recovered. When the host of the competition announced the start of the finals, many people suddenly realized the martial arts genius exchange contest covering 12 star regions has entered the final stage. But it seems that the result is not important anymore. When Liu Sheng and Qian Yushu stepped onto the stage respectively, everyone's eyes subconsciously focused on Liu Sheng, with expressions of amazement and complexity. At this moment, Liu Sheng seems to have become the only protagonist 02 in this competition. No one's light can hide it. There is only one last step left for him to ascend the throne and be crowned king. Liu Sheng looked at Qian Yushu in front of him, and Qian Yushu was also looking at him. The moment he looked at Qian Yushu, Liu Sheng immediately confirmed in his heart. The previous look full of covetousness towards him came from the young man in front of him who seemed calm and didn't care much about everything. Liu Sheng narrowed his eyes slightly, feeling a cold killing intent in his heart. He didn't know what kind of thoughts Qian Yushu had towards him. But it is definitely right to suppress the other party's thoughts in time. Even if Qian Yushu hides his strength, he is probably about the same as Monroe. Jinwu. The power of the stars. It shouldn't be a problem to kill him with this move. It's fine to pretend that the power is not under control. Anyway, this guy has no background, and no one will care if he is killed. Would it be a bit deliberate to use the big move when you come up, and deal with it for a few rounds first? Liu Sheng's eyes flickered, and he was secretly thinking. Qian Yushu, who was standing opposite him, didn't know at this time that Liu Sheng was already thinking about how to kill him, but felt an inexplicable sense of horror and crisis for no reason. Looking at Liu Sheng in front of him, his image and temperament seemed to have become fierce and ferocious. At this time, the referee announced the official start of the final. Beginning. Before the exclamation point landed, Liu Sheng rushed towards Qian Yushu. In less than a 10,000th of a blink of an eye, the transformation of human beings into gods is completed. The hair color is golden, and the gorgeous sun totem is all over the body. He is like a golden sun, suddenly descending in front of Jian Yushu. Jian Yushu's pupils shrunk slightly, and his body subconsciously took a step back, but he didn't dodge, but made a gesture with one hand, as if to resist. Liu Sheng's eyes were fierce, and he raised his hand and punched Jian Yushu hard. My punch contains the power of tens of thousands of star seeds, can you stop it? Boom! The dazzling golden light exploded, and the void exploded layer by layer. When all the light dissipated, Liu Sheng walked out of it expressionlessly. Looking up, he found Jian Yushu in another location. His punch actually hit nothing. Jian Yushu stood in the void with a serious expression, turned his palm over, and took out a sword. But this sword is too small, only about 1 foot long. The appearance is very beautiful, the whole body is golden, with mysterious patterns all over it, it looks like a handicraft placed in a glass cabinet. Jian Yushu took out the long sword and threw it upwards. Swish! In an instant, the golden dagger shone brightly, and then expanded rapidly like a blown balloon. The transient changes are as large as several kilometers in size. With a slight turn, tens of thousands of 10,000-meter sword lights emerged. I rely on. Seeing this scene, Liu Sheng couldn't help blurting out, flying sword. Isn't this the characteristic of the immortal cultivator Fijian described in the Xiangxia novels? The size is as you wish, the sword light is differentiated. Jian Yushu is actually a cultivator. Liu Sheng was a little dazed, staring at Jian Yushu in front of him in astonishment. Just in such a daze, Bing Yushu had already manipulated thousands of sword lights to slash towards him. The billowing sword light overwhelmed him. Liu Sheng was surrounded by countless sword lights. Every sword light is as sharp as a dragon, exuding a compelling sharpness. Liu Sheng punched out casually, smashing 3 or 5 sword gangs into pieces, trying to break through the sea of sword light. After playing for a while, I suddenly felt a pain in the back of my hand. Withdrawing his hand and looking, there was a deep cut on the face of the fist. Well! Liu Sheng was taken aback. He had never been injured in the fight with Monroe before, but he did not expect to be injured by Jian Yushu's sword. Shua! A sword light struck, Liu Sheng turned his fist into a finger, and lightly flicked on the sword light. Clang! The crisp sound of gold and iron clanging. He tilted his head slightly, and a particularly sharp sword light flew past his cheek. It is the entity of Kunyashu's golden flying sword. Liu Sheng reached out and touched the traces of blood oozing from the surface of his cheeks, and an unparalleled brilliance gradually bloomed in his eyes. However, this lethality is really terrifying. If I can integrate it into my divine crystal martial arts, it may take my divine crystal way to a higher level. So, Liu Sheng said to himself, just use that trick. We practice martial arts and you cultivate immortality. Then take a good look today, in the end it is your flying sword that is sharp. Or my fist is harder. Saying that, Liu Sheng let go of his hands, stretched his body, and a strange brilliance bloomed from his body. In the starry sky, the onlookers were quite calm at first. After Liu Sheng was engulfed by the Kunyashujian light, they waited for Liu Sheng to break through the tide. But gradually he began to notice something was wrong, and his expression was also moved. I saw that Kunyashu's 10 fingers moved together, making strange gestures one after another like a butterfly wearing a flower. Every gesture stimulated a burst of energy, which either turned into a 10,000-meter sword light, or injected into his flying sword. Every time energy is injected, the sword light on the flying sword will increase by 1 point, and the light will be brighter. As time went by, the number of golden sword lights in the starry sky field increased, and their aura became more and more fierce. Unknowingly, 440 has even surpassed the previous scene when Monroe broke out of the Frost Absolute territory. Different from Monroe's sudden outburst, Jian Yushu's sword light is like boiling a frog in warm water. Little by little, before you know it, it becomes a sea of Wang Yang swords. Moreover, every sword light in the Sea of Swords is astonishingly sharp, and can easily cut through 3 or 4 layers of void. He is like a low-key and forbearing spider, quietly weaving a lore domain that belongs to him in the starry sky. And Lu Sheng. It is the butterfly that unfortunately falls into the spider's web because of its pride and arrogance. Damn it! Qian Yusha's strength is so strong. Finally someone couldn't help but blurt it out. At this time, Tian Yu's lore wind has finally come to fruition. The thickest and sharpest spider threads were laid by him. 3 radiant and regular galaxies emerged from behind him, and quickly sank into the Sea of Swords. All of a sudden, the entire Sea of Swords in the starry sky shone brightly, arousing unprecedented and unparalleled vigor. There are countless people watching the battle as shaken as the starry sky. The expressions of these people were beyond shock and astonishment, with disbelief written all over their faces. 12 levels, 3 rules of the galaxy. The true strength of Jian Yushu is stronger than Monroe. Boom! At the same time, the final formation of the Sword Sea also rotated and stirred. Stirring out infinite killing intent, smashing the void of the 4th floor, and even the 5th floor. Countless people are moved by it at this moment. 515 The 500,000 meter Dharma appearance, the 4th supernatural power golden glazed body. Although Jian Yushu had won all the way before, his performance was not too impressive, and he was slightly inferior to Lu Sheng and Monroe. But who would have thought that Jian Yushu was actually the one that was hidden the most in this competition? Not only has he been promoted to the 12th level long ago, the number of rule galaxies he has attracted has reached a full 3, and his strength even surpasses that of Monroe. The 3 rules of the Milky Way submerged into the sword formation, and the huge sea of sword light seemed to be completely boiling. From a distance, it looks like golden dragons are moving in the sky in the sea of stars. Among them, the solid flying sword, which is the eye of the sword formation, is even more so that it cannot be added. Leaping high, the terrifying sharpness contained in the Wanmai flying sword spans the endless void, almost tearing the eyeballs of the onlookers. This sword, even I can't stop it. In the highest spectator seat, a speaker-level figure in a purple robe spoke with emotion. Dunlop frowned. It is said that Jian Yushu is the reincarnation of a civilization in another universe. Is that true? The purple-robed chairman thought for a while, and said in a low voice, "Probably. I have reported to the galaxy, and someone should come down to verify it soon." Dunlop's eyes flickered, and his expression was slightly calm. Over the years, the news of reincarnated civilizations from different universes is nothing new. Many star regions have been discovered, and it is said that there have even been collective reincarnations in other galaxies. Most of these people reincarnated from different universe civilizations are powerful, and the strength of their predecessors may even be stronger than those 12th level speaker level figures. It cannot be judged by common sense at all, and it is not uncommon for such outrageous things to happen to them. And the various weird supernatural powers brought by these people from their predecessors are sometimes quite troublesome. Dunlop thought for a while, and secretly made up his mind. If Lu Sheng is even slightly damaged by Jian Yushu's subordinates, just mobilize the 13th level Star Destroyer cannon and kill him. No matter what kind of alien civilization he can reincarnate, 10 are not as good as 1 immortal level. The bloodline is so precious. Thinking about it, Dunlop immediately gave a wink to the chief law enforcement officer of the Yamuxing district and the chief of the front line, and the 3 of them secretly discussed in private. In the starry sky, Jian Yushu, dressed in casual clothes and with a refined temperament, grasped the sword art with his hands, and stared at the center of the sword sea with sharp eyes. Take a deep breath. Immediately afterwards, a 10,000 meter long ornate golden sword rose rapidly in the starry sky, with a sharp edge. The divine sense firmly locked the air mechanism belonging to Lu Sheng in the center of the formation. The Great Luogang Golden Sword formation has been completed. This sword is enough to injure the void refining realm. It corresponds to the martial arts level of this cosmic civilization, which is level 13. No matter how strong this kid is, he will definitely not be able to resist it. After injuring it severely, I can take advantage of the trend. Thinking of that possibility, Jian Yushu's eyes burst into faint scorching heat and madness. His heart was burning, and he couldn't wait to pinch out a spell. The 10,000 meter golden sword in the starry sky quickly cut down. In an instant, endless sharpness burst out. The sea of swords turned into waves, and the void was shattered layer by layer. The void that had been blasted to the 5th floor quickly began to crack under the severing of the golden sword. The pupils of the onlookers constricted. Even the speaker-level figures sitting in the highest spectator seats couldn't help but stand up from their seats one after another. Break the limit 5 times. Breaking the limit 5 times again. Previously, Liu Sheng punched 5 times to break the limit of combat power, which was already appalling and broke the cognition of many people. Unexpectedly, Jian Yushu's combat power has reached the height of breaking the limit 5 times. Generally speaking, those who can reach the limit-breaking level 4 times at the 12th level are considered to be extremely talented, far surpassing their peers. Many of the 12th level speakers didn't even break the limit 4 times. As a result, a 5-level limit breaker appeared in a while, and a 5-level limit breaker appeared in a while. It is too exaggerated. Damn it! Dunlop's face was serious, with a look of anxiety and worry. He didn't expect Jian Yushu to be so strong. Although Liu Sheng has hit a level 5 limit-breaking attack, it doesn't mean that he can also withstand this level of attack. After all, his martial arts realm is only 10th level. Immortal level blood, endowing Liu Sheng with an exaggerated combat power comparable to that of a 13th level leader is already remarkable enough. Other aspects, such as mental power, defense power. It is estimated that it is a short board. After all, it is a battle separated by 2 great realms. Once the opportunity is lost, it will become extremely dangerous. Dunlop's eyes flashed wildly, and his mental power spread out quickly. He has contacted the competition referee and is ready to stop the competition at any time. Obviously, Deng Pu was not the only one who thought of this. Many people's hearts were suddenly suspended, and their eyes were fixed on the point where the terrifying sword light fell. Breaking the limit 5 times, unless Liu Sheng used the punch that defeated Monroe before, he might not be able to stop Jian Yushu's sword at all. Just when everyone was tense and the competition referee hesitated whether to stop the competition immediately and let Jian Yushu stop. Boom! Accompanied by an extremely loud roar, the sea of swords that occupied most of the starry sky suddenly exploded. Egged! An extremely huge body emerged from the billowing sword light. This body is too big. It is so big that anyone feels small in front of it. And it is still rapidly expanding and expanding. In just the blink of an eye, a stalwart titan with a height of more than 500,000 meters walked out of the sea of swords. This titan is radiant all over, surrounded by colorful lights and countless stars, with a well-proportioned body and a handsome face. His eyes are 2 flaming suns, and there are 3-legged golden crows hovering inside the sun. A long black snake hangs from his earlobe, and he has tattoos of Kailan and Suanwu on his body. The moment he walked out, more than 80% of the power of heaven and earth and the energy of the natural universe in this starry sky were mobilized, forming torrents and tides visible to the naked eye to lick him. Everyone in the field was stunned. Then he reacted quickly, and was so shocked that his face and voice were deformed, and he cried out in surprise. This is Liu Sheng's martial arts body. Hiss! There was a sound of gasping for air. Many people's eyeballs are almost protruding from their sockets. It's not that they haven't seen a martial arts form, but a martial arts form of more than 500,000 meters is really unheard of. Can martial arts be so big? Someone was dumbfounded. It's too outrageous. The key is... Someone murmured, Liu Sheng is only at the 10th level now. If we wait until the 11th level, how far will it grow? Scalp tingling. Can't imagine. All of a sudden, everyone in the field was so shocked that they couldn't say anything. Even Jian Yushu was shocked. But soon his expression returned to normal, with a cold glow in his eyes. Using the body of the law to fight against my sword? It's a good idea, but, can it be stopped? Hee hee. Jian Yushu sneered, Wan Mai Jinjian continued to cut down. Under the terrifying sword light capable of tearing open 5 layers of void, the 50 million Dharma body also appeared extremely fragile. A big hole was easily torn open. But before the gap widened, the 500,000 meter Dharma body quickly retracted. In just a blink of an eye, it shrunk down to resubmerge into the sea of swords. As if it had never appeared before. Giant donkeys are poor. Had. The smile on Jian Yushu's face widened, and without any hesitation, he manipulated the flying sword to slash fiercely at the position where Fa Xiang disappeared. BT. Clang. A big hand that was as golden as glass stretched out from the sea of swords, and gently grasped the 10,000 meter long shining golden sword in his hand. In the next second, a figure walked out of the sea of swords. This figure is full of gold, as if poured into golden glaze. Huang Ye gives people a sense of incomparable dignity and beauty. He held a terrifying flying sword 1,000 times larger than his body in one hand. The terrifying sharp air wrapped in the flying sword blasted his body, making a series of jingling sounds. He is like an ancient god of war, stepping out from the picture scroll of legends with a strong aura of mythology. The 4th supernatural power. Gold, glass body. Holding the huge sword in one hand, Liu Sheng stared at the 1,000-feather book in the distance with his eyes, slowly stretched his body, making the sound of gold and jade clattering. He said softly, "Have you cut enough? Now it's my turn to cut you." After speaking, Liu Sheng took a step forward. Like a golden sky knife piercing the starry sky. 516 Supreme Defense, capture the dragon with bare hands. 2. Well. Seeing his flying sword being blocked by Liu Sheng, the smile on Jian Yushu's face froze, and he fell into a momentary stupor. But before he could get rid of the shock of this scene, Liu Sheng had pierced the sky like a golden sky knife and approached suddenly. He suddenly realized it, and hurriedly manipulated the flying sword to slash back. At the same time, the figure quickly pulled back. The 10,000 meter flying sword is like an angry dragon whirling and flying, almost becoming a long golden thread. The sharp air pierced the void into rags, leaving a large swath of black and white traces. But Liu Sheng looked normal, turned around and punched the flying sword. Accompanied by the crisp sound of clang, the 10,000 meter long bright golden sword was directly blasted away by Liu Sheng's punch. This time Jian Yushu saw clearly and felt clearly. He slashed Liu Sheng's fist with his sword, as if slashing on extremely hard gold, iron, and jade. Bund made his hands numb. This is impossible. Jian Yushu couldn't help blurting out. His eyes widened, his body trembled violently, and a look of shock appeared on his face. You know, his flying sword is blessed by the power of the Deluogeng golden sword formation, so sharp that the 5 layers of void will be cut through. Even a 13th level void refining realm cultivator can be injured. But Liu Sheng blocked it with his bare hands. Unarmed. How could he not be shocked? It wasn't just Jian Yushu, the crowd who were watching were also lost in thought. In the battle against Minro, Liu Sheng showed 5 limit breaks, which is comparable to the terrifying combat power of a 13th level leader. Now in the battle with Jian Yushu, Liu Sheng has shown a terrifying defensive power that can withstand 5 limit-breaking attacks. Combat power and defense power are comparable to the best of the 13th level powerhouse. The audience felt a little numb in their hands and feet. This Nima can still be regarded as the 10th level of martial arts? Simply count it as level 13. Compared with ordinary 13th level powerhouses, he has more martial arts skills. Although it is immortality that comes out once in a million years. Some people murmured, but it's too perverted. It is indeed unacceptable. Dunlop, who was in the highest spectator seat, was also in a daze. He originally thought that Liu Sheng, who had 5 times of limit-breaking combat power, would be his shortcoming in defense. But unexpectedly, Liu Sheng's defensive power was equally terrifying. Level 5 limit-breaking attacks can be easily blocked. Then what is Liu Sheng's shortcoming? Mental power. Dunlop thought about it carefully. He had felt the strength of Liu Sheng's mental power. Liu Sheng's mental strength should be at the peak of the 11th level. Compared with his combat power and defense power, only the peak spiritual power of the 11th level can really be regarded as a short board. Level 11 peak, short board. Dunlop, who came up with this answer, didn't know what to say for a while. I just feel that there are mixed feelings in my heart, which is extremely complicated. Think about Liu Sheng's age. Dunlop suddenly felt that his practice of martial arts for thousands of years was considered to be practiced on dogs. Although it was on Liu Sheng's side. But he still couldn't help but want to curse. Grass, really Nema metamorphosis. Clang! Clang! The entire sea of swords boiled, and almost endless waves of sword light squeezed towards Liu Sheng from all directions. The huge sword array formed a terrifying history of strangulation and cutting. And the body of the golden flying sword as the eye of the array is even more instant like a flying dragon. But Liu Sheng dispelled all these attacks lightly. A ray of sword light slashed towards his neck, and his jaw crushed the sword light. 2 sword lights pierced his eyes. When he closed his eyes and blocked the sword lights with his eyelids, the latter smashed into pieces with a clang. Liu Sheng, who was dressed in golden glaze, had an unprecedented level of defense. The whole body, every part, every inch of skin, even every strand of hair. They are all indestructible weapons. So much so that he ran rampant in the huge sword formation, completely ignoring any attack, and rushed the entire sword formation to pieces without much effort. Golden glass body. The 4th supernatural power created by Liu Sheng in the star practice field. Represents supreme defense. After breaking through the 10th level, my martial arts body skyrocketed to an unprecedented height of 500,000 meters. But it is too bloated and inconvenient to use against the enemy, and the power is also scattered. And the 10th level of martial arts is the stage of melting martial arts into martial arts. On a whim, Liu Sheng thought that instead of making the body of Faxiang a weakling, it would be better to transform it into an invincible defensive magical power. For ordinary people, it may be difficult to do this. But with the backing of the original power of the universe, Liu Sheng achieved it after a little deduction. Even a strong zombie of level 13 can't break through my golden glazed body, let alone a mere level 12. Immortal Dao Flying Sword. Snort. Liu Sheng's eyes were burning with gold, and he snorted coldly. The 2 golden and glazed arms suddenly shot out a beige-colored dazzling light, and suddenly stretched out, a flying sword body that Yushu had slashed for an unknown number of times tightly hugged it. The blade of the 10,000 meter golden sword was clamped by Liu Sheng's arms. The terrifying cutting edge at the edge hit Liu Sheng's chest, rubbing and colliding with the golden glass-like skin and splashing out countless crystal sparks. Fijian was shaken wildly. A flash of hostility flashed on Liu Sheng's face, and he squeezed his arms in between. 0. Ask for flowers. Crack. Accompanied by a crisp sound, a long crack was forced out of the huge golden sword by him. Seeing this scene, Qian Yushu was so shocked that his eyeballs almost popped out. Without waiting for his reaction, the whole body was overflowing with light, and Liu Sheng, who was as golden as glass, suddenly burst out with extremely bright Bajan light. Immortal, second burning. Main sequence star state. Boom. The light and heat are flourishing. Liu Sheng's momentum soared, he let go of his arms, fisted with both hands, and bombarded the golden flying sword frantically one after another. The 10,000 meter long golden flying sword trembled wildly, whining endlessly. The onlookers watched from afar, and their bodies couldn't help but tremble violently. This scene reminded them of ancient myths and legends. The god of war descended from the sky, wearing the armor of Bajan glass, in the starry sky. Capture the dragon with bare hands. Boom. Kika_. Lu Sheng didn't know how many punches he had thrown, and there were more and more cracks on the golden flying sword, like a spider's web. Finally spread to the entire 10,000-meter sword body. Lu Sheng violently punched out. The 10,000-meter-long golden giant sword exploded abruptly in the void into smoke. Then there was a huge sword formation and a sea of swords that exploded. Accompanied by the explosion of the giant sword and the sword array, Qian Yushu, who was controlling all of this in the distance, also trembled violently, his face turned extremely pale, and he spit out a mouthful of blood when he opened his mouth. Buzz! In the exploding sword light, a small qilong sword flew up like a swimming snake. But before he had time to fly far, a figure had already caught up and stepped on it hard. Click! There was an extra crack on the golden little sword. Puff! Qian Yushu opened his mouth, another mouthful of blood. Lu Sheng froze for a moment, looked up at Qian Yushu, let go of his right foot, switched to his left foot and stepped on the flying sword again. Crack! The golden flying sword wailed, and there was another crack. Puff! Qian Yushu also spurted a mouthful of blood. Lu Sheng's eyes lit up, as if he had discovered some interesting game. At first, he stepped on the flying sword with both feet alternately. Crack click! Puff puff! The flying sword rang wildly, and Qian Yushu vomited blood wildly. Every time there was a crack on the flying sword, Tian Yu would spit out blood. Lu Sheng exerted all his strength, and crushed the tattered flying sword with one foot. In the distance, Qian Yushu's mouth was spurting blood, looking up like a fountain. It's so interesting. At 517 When the dust settles, praise the name of immortality. 3. The completely crushed little flying swords scattered and floated in the void. A group of Bajan flames rolled up. After a short while, only a cloud of dark gold remained. Hey! Lu Sheng was surprised. Immortal second combustion, main sequence star state, Bajan flame temperature is as high as 1,000,000 degrees. It was beyond his expectation that the flying sword could still have metal residue at this temperature. Nice one! With a flash in Lu Sheng's eyes, he reached out and grabbed the dark gold, and put it into the storage space bracelet in his hand. Qian Yushu, who witnessed this scene. Puff! Another mouthful of blood spurted out. Good guy, how about performing a human-shaped fountain with me? With a flash of Lu Sheng's figure, it was like a Bajan sky knife piercing the starry sky, tearing open the void, and he came to Qian Yushu in an instant. Qian Yushu, whose face was pale and bleeding from the corner of his mouth, panicked, but his eyes quickly turned fierce. Kill God! 2 feet long rays of light suddenly shot out from his eyes. At the same time, a wave of fierce May 17th mental power broke through his celestial cap and quickly attacked Lu Sheng. This spiritual force transformed into a cone shape in the void, causing waves of ripples to appear in the void. Intangible but qualitative. Lu Sheng didn't rush, he stretched out his hand and patted the center of his brow. Boom! It is like the sound of water drops falling into a calm lake, like the sound of the finest jade wares, and like the sound of a brilliant crystal sky knife being unsheathed. A touch of 4-color brilliance bloomed from the center of Lu Sheng's eyebrows. Then it forms a small crystal knife overflowing with light and colorful colors. It shot out in a flash. In front of this crystal knife, that ferocious cone-shaped mental power is like a jackal at the end of the road encountering a dragon soaring in the sky. It was just a face-to-face meeting, and they were easily torn to pieces. The crystal knife smashed the cone and drove straight in, tearing through the layers of void ripples, and slashed straight at Qian Yushu. When the cone-shaped mental power was shattered, blood spurted out from Qian Yushu's mouth like he didn't want money, and his already pale face was like gold paper. His expression changed wildly, and he retreated crazily. At the same time, facing the direction of the referee in the distance, he shouted, "I give up! I give up!" Liu Sheng looked calm, but his eyes were as cold as frost. The four-color crystal knife didn't even reach the blink of an eye, it suddenly pierced through Jian Yushu's forehead, and then pierced out from the back of his head. There is something extra on the knife, and it is a golden villain. The villain was completely naked, holding a small flying sword in his hand that was broken into pieces. The appearance is the same as Jian Yushu, but much younger. The villain was nailed through the chest with a four-color crystal knife, struggling and screaming desperately. At this time, the voice of the referee finally came belatedly, announcing loudly, "In this competition, Liu Sheng from the sub-Jupiter region wins." When the little man on the knife heard this voice, his face showed ecstasy, he danced at Liu Sheng, and shouted childishly, "You have won! You have already won!" Liu Sheng remained expressionless, and controlled the four-color crystal knife to fly back with a cold heart. Together with the chubby villain, he plunged into his eyebrows. Kika. Liu Sheng's forehead swelled slightly, and there seemed to be a chewing sound coming out. But it soon subsided and returned to normal. After finishing all this, Liu Sheng casually grabbed Jian Yushu's corpse, grabbing out some scattered things of unknown purpose from his body. Then a little Bajan flame was thrown out, burning his whole body into a pool of ashes. "What are you thinking?" Liu Sheng shook his head, "It's as if you can live after the competition is over, it's ridiculous." Liu Sheng said, casually looking at the relics belonging to Jian Yushu in his hand. "Here, I would also like to thank Far for his popularization before the game, letting him know that Jian Yushu has no background and his identity is sensitive. So he has no burden to kill. Rebirth of the strong? Reincarnation power? If you have no strength and no background, what are you doing dancing like that? He deserved to be crushed to death." Swallowed the villain transformed by Jian Yushu's spiritual power, and now all the secrets of Jian Yushu are in Liu Sheng's mind. Just wait to go back and read slowly. When Liu Sheng collected Jian Yushu's relic, that is, his spoils of war, he raised his eyes and looked around the starry sky around the arena. As far as the eye can see, what he saw was a pair of faces with indescribable expressions. Really? His performance in this competition is a bit exaggerated. With a 10th level body, Lin Chan has 3 12th level players. 1 defeat, 1 disability, 1 death. Across 2 great realms adversity is like eating and drinking. Really define the meaning of immortal bloodline. Except him. Every contestant is a foil. Words already seem thin at this moment. Countless spectators stood up from their seats, including the 12th level speaker level figures on the highest rostrum. Everyone's face was filled with an inexplicable light. Especially Dunlop. At this time, Dunlop felt as if he had returned to his successful tenure as the Speaker of the House of Representatives in the Sub-Jupiter district. The excitement is indescribable. He originally wanted to use this competition to show off his might, and to make other star regions envious. Result. What Liu Sheng gave him was a grand event for absolute domination. Whoops, cheers. Unknowingly, there was a sound, and tens of thousands of spaceships flew into space, and drew one after another gorgeous tail flames above the arena. The image of Liu Sheng appeared on the huge starry sky screen. Liu Sheng has already exited from the second combustion state, and has returned to the appearance of black hair and black pupils. He just stood there calmly, but it was dazzling like 10,000, 100 million stars blooming at the same time. Everyone looked at him, with indescribable excitement and enthusiasm gushing out of their eyes. They feel that they are witnessing the birth of a certain history, a certain legend, the prologue of a certain myth. There is no doubt that, from today, the name of immortality should be spread throughout the 12-star regions included in the contest. But Liu Sheng, who was at the center of all attention, kept his eyes on the direction of the white hole shuttle. His gaze penetrated the shell of the white hole shuttle ship. Passing past parents, younger sister Liu Qinghe. Pausing on Dong Qingxiu's face for a while, it finally moved down and landed on Dong Qingxiu's lower abdomen. The source of that great joy and great throbbing. The corners of Liu Sheng's mouth slowly curled up, thinking silently in his heart. Can you see that, cub? Your father is now, how fierce! The sensational 12, oh no, it should be said that the Interstellar Martial Arts Talent Exchange Contest in the 13-star regions, 1-star region did not come to participate and only watched TV at home, finally came to an end. Countless spectators and contestants began to return. There are countless spaceships sailing out of the sub-Jupiter region every day. Of course, there are also some people who choose to stay and play for a while, reckoning that the Jupiter District Federation of economic benefits brought by the competition will still be able to take a big hit. As for the process and results of this competition, along with those who returned and the broadcast signal, centered on the sub-Jupiter 3.6 area, the radiation spread rapidly. Liu Sheng's name, image, record. It is also wrapped in layers of rich legendary colors, spreading throughout the 13-star regions. In a top medical institution in the main star area of the sub-Jupiter region, Liu Sheng stood in the corridor, looking calmly at a middle-aged man with a chubby face and a business suit in front of him. Sorry, I don't have any interest in what you have to say. Your Excellency Liu Sheng, please think again, our group will never be stingy in terms of remuneration. The middle-aged fat man was sweating profusely and wanted to fight for it, but 3 or 4 strong men in the uniform of the law enforcement department appeared behind him. Another harasser who sneaked in. Catch him! Don't let him get away! When the middle-aged fat man saw the members of the law enforcement department, he immediately turned pale with fright, hurriedly stuffed a business card into Liu Sheng's hand, and then ran away. 518 Fetal Star, 1. Hello, Mr. Liu. Hello, my lord. Liu Sheng took a step back, watching members of the law enforcement department respectfully greet him as they passed by him, and then quickly chased the fleeing middle-aged fat man, quite speechless. He looked down at the business card left by the fat man in his hand. Tian Kai Huameng Film and Television, producer. Behind it is a long string of awkward names. Yes, China Fatty is the gold medal production area of a super large film and television group that spans multiple star areas. Sneaked into this hospital just to beg Liu Sheng to agree to appear in their company's new drama, Immortal Legend. This play is completely adapted from the real story of Liu Sheng himself, with an estimated investment of more than 10 trillion black crystal coins, and Liu Sheng is the prototype of the story and the proposed hero. As long as you nod your head, you can easily get authorization fees and film remunerations totaling more than trillions of black crystal coins. To be honest, if it wasn't for the consideration that there would be a terrifying crisis that could destroy an entire galaxy waiting to be resolved 6 years later, the usual practice time would not be enough, and I would like to use every second for a minute. Liu Sheng was really moved. 1 trillion black crystal coins. In his 2002 life, he has never owned wealth in units of trillions. Although he is not short of money at all for the time being, all he needs to do is mention it to the Sub-Jupiter Federation. But there is nothing eternal in this world, and he is embarrassed to ask the Federation to extend his hand too many times. The key is, I have a cub, and I have to raise children in the future. Yes, Liu Sheng has a baby. He practiced hard for more than 3 months in the Sing Sing practice field. After leaving the customs, he and Dong Qingxiu were newly married. They worked hard every night. I didn't expect to win the bid by accident. Liu Sheng put away the business card given by the middle-aged fat man, walked through the corridor, and walked quickly into a room. The room is quiet and bright, and the old Liu family is there. Everyone's faces were filled with excitement and joy that had not yet dissipated, and their eyes focused on Dong Qingxiu, who was half lying down and being examined by the doctor. The doctor who examined Dong Qingxiu was a tall female superhuman with 6 ears and 5 eyes. At this time, she was smiling and talking to the old Lu's family. The countess is in very good health, and the baby in her stomach is also very stable, just. As soon as Liu Sheng came in, he heard the doctor say the word is, so he couldn't help but quickly asked, "What is it?" "Lord Earl." Seeing Liu Sheng, the doctor hurriedly stood up and saluted him respectfully, and replied after Liu Sheng waved his hand casually, "It's just that the Earl's blood is too strong, and the child's pregnancy time may exceed that of ordinary humans. In short, it is likely that the wife's pregnancy time will be very long." Liu Sheng's eyes flickered, and he asked, "How long is it?" "Conservative estimate, more than 3 cosmic years." 3 cosmic years, converted into blue star time is 9 years. Good guy, Neza has not been born for so long. Maybe when you are born, you will be able to point to the sky and the ground with one hand, and say, "I am the only one in the sky and on the earth, and my fate is up to me." Liu Sheng was thinking wildly in his mind, but without saying anything, he nodded and let the doctor go out. 3 years. As soon as the doctor left, Mother Zheng Yufen couldn't help sighing, 3 years is too long. "Oh, it's not too late for a good meal." Liu Dahai smiled, "After 3 years, we will be grandparents. I'm going to be an aunt too." Liu Qinghe also had a look of joy and novelty. Dong Qingxiu was lying on the bed, with the maternal radiance on her cold face, her hands were gently placed on her lower abdomen, her smile was serene. The whole family is immersed in the atmosphere of joy and enjoyment. Liu Sheng walked up to Dong Qingxiu's side, and put his hand gently on Dong Qingxiu's lower abdomen. "You don't need mental power to investigate, you can feel that there is a vigorous and powerful life form in it." This living body appeared when Liu Sheng participated in the first round of the competition. As a grandmaster, Dong Qingxiu noticed something strange about her body, but because she was not sure, she did not inform Sheng. So much later that Liu Sheng unintentionally read this news from Dong Qingxiu's heart, and his whole body was hit by sudden joy and excitement, and fell into a state of trance. "It's not as good as this." Liu Sheng thought for a while, and said to Dong Qingxiu, "It just so happens that the rewards of the competition have just been distributed, and my fief as an earl is going to receive them. Let's just pick a planet and move there together, and take good care of you and your baby." "Pick a planet?" Liu Qinghe next to him couldn't help asking curiously when he heard this, "Brother, how many planets do you have under your name now?" Liu Sheng's eyes flickered slightly, and he said calmly, "Not many, just about 100,000. "Well." There was an eerie silence in the room. The silver-grey, elegant white hole shuttle spaceship jumped out of the space. Subscribe to Chinese Novel Audio Wave. After a short flight, it finally came to a beautiful blue and green planet and landed slowly. During the landing process of the spaceship, a series of silver figures flew out of the spaceship and quickly entered the surface of the planet. At the same time, the hatch of the spaceship opened, and a black figure walked out of the spaceship. Liu Sheng stepped through the void and came to a place more than 3,000 meters above the surface of the planet. The mental power spread out and spread to the entire planet in an instant. The total volume is twice that of Azure Star. 60% of the planet's surface is land, and the vegetation coverage rate is as high as 93%. 447. The oxygen concentration is more than 7 times that of the blue star, and the natural energy of the universe is far more than that of the blue star. The gravity is about 1.5 times that of Azure Star. There is no trace of alien beast invasion, there are indigenous races, and the strongest individual among them is probably at the 6th level of martial arts. The most powerful life individual on the entire planet, the strength level is only the 8th level of martial arts. In general, a slightly satisfied look appeared on Liu Sheng's face, it's very suitable for human habitation. During this time, he took his family through hundreds of living planets. So far, this planet is the most satisfying breeding place for him. The scenery is beautiful, the environment is suitable, there is no pollution, and there is no danger. The 1,000 magic silver guards on his spaceship are enough to form an absolute ruling force on this planet, so there is no need to worry about any harm to his family. The only thing that might not fit well, probably because of the oxygen concentration and gravity, the life forms on this planet are several times the size of the blue star. As a private habitation star, try not to disturb each other with the indigenous life, it doesn't matter at all. Thinking about it, Sheng manipulated the spaceship to land on the open space cleared by the magic silver guards in time. Then call the family out. 519 Dark Side Martial Arts, Dark Side Clone, 2. It's so beautiful. After getting off the spaceship, He let out an exclamation sound from his small mouth. Around the land chosen by Sheng, there are tall trees and vegetation everywhere. The thick and long vines are like horned dragons, and the huge flowers of various colors bloom incomparably without money. In the distance, there is an extremely huge waterfall, pouring down the rolling Milky Way, roaring, and the breeze brings sweet water vapor. Liu Dahai and Zheng Yufen took a deep breath, and couldn't help expressing their sincere emotion. The environment is really nice. The two were wearing top-notch space suits, and the slight difference in gravity on this planet had almost no effect on them. This place is really nice. Dong Qingxiu, who walked out later, also had a faint smile on her face. Sheng walked up, wrapped his arms around her waist, and said with a smile, I have already investigated the situation of the entire planet, and all aspects are very suitable for living. Do you think it is okay, so I will live here from now on? Dong Qingxiu nodded and said N. Suddenly remembered something and asked him, what is the name of this planet? It was originally called Fonta Star, but now. Sheng smiled slightly, and said solemnly, let's officially change the name to Yang Taixing. Dong Qingxiu was both helpless and funny. With Dong Qingxiu's affirmation, Sheng informed the family of this decision, which was unanimously approved by the family. It may also be that there are too many living planets that I have seen along the way, and I am a little tired and don't want to go anymore. After deciding to settle down, Liu Dahai and Liu Qinghe were fine, and Liu Sheng could see that his mother Zheng Yufen's smile was mixed with a hint of depression that hesitated to speak. With a heartbeat, Liu Sheng stepped forward to comfort him, Mom, the relocation plan on Azure Star has already started, and it won't be long before all our relatives and friends will be able to move *. Liu Sheng pointed to a certain direction in the sky. The planet over there is only a few 100,000 kilometers away from our current planet. If you take a spaceship, you will be there in 10 minutes. Really? Zheng Yufen's eyes lit up, a little surprised. When did I lie to you? Liu laughed. That's more. Liu Qinghe suddenly interjected in from the side, and counted with his fingers, since you graduated from college, brother, you lied to the family and kept too many things from us. Black lines appeared on Liu Sheng's face, and he said coldly, Liu Qinghe, the competition is over, you have played enough. Don't think that the progress of cultivation that has fallen during this period is over. Everything has to be made up. Tyrant! Dictatorship! Liu Qinghe screamed in shock. Liu Sheng didn't bother to pay attention to her, so he sent her to help the robot build a house first. After settling his family down for the time being, Liu Sheng found a place to deal with his affairs by himself. The first is to contact the Front Director General in the Subju Star area. The last time I mentioned the Dark Lord of the Azure Star to the Director General of the front line, he received great attention, and said that he had sent people to the Azure Star catacombs to investigate, but he didn't know the result. Dial the signal of the front commander Oyen. Soon, the description of the other party appeared on the communicator. Director. Liu Sheng briefly said a few words to the director of the front yin, to express his concerns, and the latter's expression immediately became serious. I was just about to tell you. Yin, the chief of the front line, said solemnly, we lost 1 11th level and 4 10th level powerhouses in the depths of the cave at the coordinates you provided. The message sent back shows that the situation is worse than we imagined. Listening to Yin's story, Liu Sheng became more and more startled. He suddenly realized how lucky he was to escape from that indescribable shadow. During his absence on Azure Planet, that guy may have figured out more sinister ways to deal with him. 1 11th level and 4 10th levels failed to escape. If he hadn't reported the matter to the frontline Director General, and he went to investigate alone, would he be the one who was recruited? Thinking of this, Liu Sheng felt a slight chill run down his spine. With the end of the martial arts competition, Dong Qingxiu is pregnant, and he is about to become a father. The sense of relaxation caused by a series of good things disappeared in an instant. The compelling sense of urgency returned to Liu Sheng again. And this time it was several times more than before. It seems that there are still 6 years to go, but who knows if something will happen in the middle, what if it is suddenly brought forward? Liu Sheng's eyes flickered, and his expression was slightly determined, I have to hurry up. After hanging up the communication with Yin, Liu Sheng nodded lightly between his eyebrows, passed on the news to Dong Qingxiu and his family, and immediately plunged into the billowing silver waterfall in front of him. Shut up, still have to shut up. Dream space. Liu Sheng stood in a desolate and dead space. All around him are decaying planets, even the stars are extinguished. This is a dead universe. Liu Sheng has long been used to the dead silence here. He sat down cross-legged casually, and began to count the gains of the interstellar martial arts talent exchange competition. First of all, it is the way of the blue flame and Yin Huo discovered from grey. The dark side of fire represents coldness, erosion, penetration. There is still a lot of potential to be tapped. If you use the power of the original source to deduce it all the way, it may not be worse than my way of stars. The question is, can the way of the dark side of fire be integrated into the way of stars? Try it. Liu Sheng thought, and Ping Ping stretched out his right hand. A white light cluster appeared in the palm of his right hand. The original power of the universe. So far, Liu Sheng has flattened about 7 or 8 planets, and his control over the original power of the universe has reached a level of 0.00%, omitting countless zeros. Should. Possible. Perhaps. It can achieve Liu Sheng's goal. The fusion of the two taos begins to deduce. Liu Sheng gave instructions to the light ball, and okay Zhao, quickly, the light ball began to rotate. Then the speed became faster and faster, and as the speed increased, the volume of the light cluster also decreased rapidly. Seeing that in the blink of an eye, the light cluster shrunk in half, Liu Sheng hurriedly stopped. Stop. The light cluster stops spinning. Check, push the degree. Current deduction progress, 0.0000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000000 Meaningless. Have to. Liu Sheng could only dismiss this idea temporarily. Fusion is not enough, or you can practice alone. Liu Sheng suddenly thought of the mass of alienated cells he had left in the depths of the abyss cave in the Azure Star. The alienation body is originally from the dark side universe, and the martial arts used to carry the dark side should be perfect. Liu Sheng stroked his smooth chin lightly. The more he thought about it, the more he felt that this idea was feasible. 520 Cultivate me, come kill me? 1. In his previous life, Liu Sheng read a novel. In the novel, the male lead practiced an extremely powerful and mysterious exercise. The exercises can purify the divinity and demon nature of the practitioner at the same time. For the gods, the time is awe-inspiring, lofty, and boundless, and every gesture is as bright as the sun, shining brilliantly. When he is a demon, he is dark and treacherous, cold and ruthless, bearing the chills of the nine nether dark prison, extremely overbearing. Thinking about it, it's really cool. Don't say that fiction is fiction, reality is reality. Liu Sheng has always been adhering to the fact that the most powerful exercises in the world come from imagination. He does it all the time. So he has been thinking about it all the time, wanting to practice immortality and alienation cells together, and to walk out a supreme road of the same body of gods and demons. Pity. The way of the stars, the supreme being of the stars is too domineering. Under the star map of the sun god territory, alienated cells have no living space at all, let alone coexist and cultivate with immortal cells. So Liu Sheng had no choice but to put this idea on hold. Until now, he had a whim and found another way to pick up this idea again. The more Liu Sheng thought about it, the more feasible it became. With the thought, the consciousness turned to the blue star 500 light-years away. In the depths of the gloomy Highwind catacombs, Liu Sheng's main body consciousness slowly woke up. Just coming here, Liu Sheng was startled. Good guy. Liu Sheng suddenly discovered that the alienated cell seed that was sowed at the beginning had now grown into a giant. The whole is an extremely huge irregular meat mass. The outer surface is a thick layer of crust. If I had to describe its shape, it would be an oversized black shell. This black shell is located about a few thousand meters away from the deepest part of the sea abyss, and the overall sphere is no less than tens of thousands of meters. The shell is filled with all kinds of weird arms, thighs. Most of them are eyeballs and tentacles. Then there is an enormous mouth full of jagged teeth. Thousands of long tentacles almost spread all over the depths of the sea abyss, entrenched in front of each grey abyss like a giant python. Whenever a strange beast sprang out from the abyss, it hadn't waited to land. These tentacles took advantage of the trend and quickly rolled them into the shell and sent them into Dayo. The big mouth is eating all the time, and it is also increasing all the time. It seems to have become a major overlord of Highwind catacombs here. The level 9 whale-like beast that Liu Sheng had seen before had disappeared, and he was afraid that it would have been eaten by it long ago. Come over. At this time, a strange wave of consciousness came from the depths of the ocean. Liu Sheng recognized in an instant that it was the him who had had more than one festival with him. His eyes flickered, his main consciousness shrank, and he returned the control of his body to the body instinct of the alienated clone. Inspired by his consciousness, the huge black shell quickly dived to the bottom of the sea. After a while, Liu Sheng came to the place full of gaps. Compared with Liu Sheng's last visit, the number of chasms in this place seems to have increased again. How long has it been? Liu Sheng's heart sank slightly. The black shells fell to the bottom of the ocean, and all the tentacles, hands, and feet became quiet. Countless eyes, large and small, looked around curiously. Good boy. That consciousness wave came out again. With the emergence of this consciousness, the countless chasms here turned from grey to black at the same instant. Then brush and flip over to look like eyeballs. At that scene, it seemed that there were countless eyes lying on the ground glass and staring at myself. The scene was so embarrassing, even if he had seen it once, Liu Sheng couldn't help getting goosebumps in his heart. But what is different from last time is that although these eyes are terrifying, the emotions revealed in them. That's love. At this time, a billowing black torrent suddenly appeared in the pupils of those countless eyes. Liu Sheng opened his eyes wide, and felt that the black stream was actually composed of countless fine black crystals. And what constitutes the black crystal is the ubiquitous black mist in Highwind catacombs. An incomparably huge black mist condensed to an extreme height. Represents the energy of the dark side universe. For alienated cells, that's the ultimate tonic. And the big mouth inside the black shell also opened at the right time, greedily devouring the feeding of the countless black torrents. Under the nourishment of the black torrent, the black shell continued to grow larger, and the eyeballs, limbs, and tentacles inside the shell also rapidly increased in size. It seems, this is clearly not the first time this has happened. No wonder alienated cells grow so fast. 0 Looking for flowers. From Lu Sheng's point of view, countless weeping eyeballs are feeding a huge and open shell monster without reservation. This weird and terrifying scene actually gave him a little warm feeling. Eat, eat, eat more, grow up. During the process of nurturing, his consciousness fluctuations are constantly spreading. Lu is numb. This is raising his alienated clone as a son. Lu Sheng had already anticipated that the alienated avatar might be bewitched by his consciousness. But it was completely unexpected for him to become the current relationship. Even if you want to win over and become a younger brother, there is no need to give such benefits. Seeing that the strength of the alienated clone is about to break through the 10th level. Just when Lu Sheng was puzzled, he suddenly received a piece of consciousness information from him in his mind. Grow up, be strong, get hold of him. This message is accompanied by a picture. In the picture is a young man with calm eyes and handsome appearance, who is repeating with a sneer, "You have the ability to come here." Who else would this person be if he wasn't Lu Sheng himself? At this moment, all doubts were finally answered. Dare to love is because of myself. It is estimated that he really hates himself so much that he can't wait for 6 years, and he wants to train a capable man here to trouble himself in advance. Those who have the ability to find trouble with their own bodies naturally cannot be weak. And at this time, the alienated avatar that had just emerged in Haiwan catacombs was naturally taken by him. Alienated cell clones that have undergone tens of millions of transformations and evolutions have much better aptitude than ordinary alien beasts. Moreover, when one's main consciousness is absent, the alienated avatar is like a newborn, with a blank sheet of paper, which is easy to control. Such a driver who can be called perfect in every aspect, how could he not have no reservations and put all his heart and soul into vigorously cultivating it? If he knew that the object he raised as his own son was actually my alienated clone, would he just go mad with anger? Lu Sheng thought silently in his heart, and couldn't help giving him who was breastfeeding a thumbs up secretly. Train me to deal with me. You really belong. The great wisdom of the dark side universe is talking about you. B. 521 Summoning Sutra. His feeding process lasted a whole day. Lu Sheng saw the strength of the alienated avatar break through from level 9 to level 10, and then go all the way up from level 10. Belch. A black bubble several kilometers in size spit out from the big mouth. What a big burp! The alienated avatar that has been nurtured has grown in size by an integer multiple, and the black shell has a size of more than 10 square kilometers. Under the shells are all extremely thick and long octopus tentacles covered with suckers, serrations, and cracks. There are also tens of thousands of eyeballs, big and small, spinning like pearls born in a clam shell. The entire alienated clone is simply a fusion of deformity, ugliness, and evil. Just looking at it will make people have nightmares for days and nights. But in his eyes, it was such a lovely and beautiful masterpiece. Go, next time, come again. Satisfied, he released the 740 fluctuation of his consciousness, like a loving mother, gently stroking his child's hair. The alienated avatar left obediently from the depths of the ocean and returned to its original position. From the beginning to the end, Lu Sheng's main body consciousness was curled up in the deepest part of the alienated clone, without revealing the slightest bit. Inside the huge black shell, one of the tawny eyeballs suddenly stopped moving, revealing a faint expression of thought. It seems that the alienated avatar is living a much more nourishing life than my main body. With his nurturing, if the main body doesn't work hard, it might be overtaken after a while. Alienation avatar has no realm threshold, as long as the energy is sufficient, it can always become stronger. It's already level 10 now, and I'm afraid it won't take long to reach level 11, level 12. Lu Sheng is not worried that the alienated clone will really be brainwashed by him and get out of his control. No matter what he transforms the alienated avatar into, as long as his main consciousness comes. With just one thought, all traces of him left in the alienated clone will be completely removed and returned to his control. Let's just let it be like this, and go up to see the situation after a while. Liu Sheng engraved a copy of the Yinhuo Tao obtained from Greiner and kept it in the alienated avatar. As for how to practice, he left it to play freely. After finishing, the subject consciousness leaves from the alienated clone. The color of wisdom in that tawny eyeball faded, and soon returned to the same primitive and wildness as the other eyeballs. Alienation avatars are already level 10, plus he attaches great importance to alienation avatars. Maybe my unintentional operation will become a stroke of genius. In the dream space, Liu Sheng sat cross-legged in the void, with a strange light blooming on his face. He always had a strong premonition that the alienated avatar might bring him many surprises in the future. Liu Sheng has already made a plan. In the future, if there is any body that cannot be cultivated, crooked methods will be thrown to the alienated clone. It doesn't matter how it is cultivated. A flash of light flashed across Liu Sheng's mind suddenly. He suddenly realized something. The essence of life is the process of transforming disorder into order in the universe. The rules of the dark side universe are reversed. My chaotic and disorderly practice route may be exactly in line with the path that the alienated clone should follow. The more Liu Sheng thought about it, the more he felt that this was the case. Anyway, he will never admit that he is too lazy to organize a new way for a clone, he is too busy on his own side. But the practice route can be ignored, but the name of the practice system must be chosen carefully. Liu Sheng has always been fond of naming. This is one of his hobbies. Liu Sheng spent a few minutes thinking about it, and quickly determined the name of the cultivation system of the alienated avatar. Let's just call it Summoning Art System. Summoning Skill. In the future, the alienated avatar will succeed in cultivation on the side of the dark side and come back strong. It was the day when the demon summoning was successful and the evil summoning technique was completed. Thinking about the future happily, Liu Sheng continued to sort out the harvest he hadn't finished sorting out. The second harvest is Monroe's Way of Extreme Cold. Monroe's Absolute Ice Prison, which can freeze even the stars, goes straight to the 13th, or even the 14th level. It is just a supplement to my Northern Suanwu True Waterway. Liu Sheng took out the power of the universe and issued an order. Fusion deduction. The wonderful use of the original power is fully revealed at this moment. During the Battle of Monroe, Liu Sheng understood the mystery of the ice-cold absolute hell, and was quickly integrated into his Northern Suanwu True Waterway by the original power of the universe. The main thing is that the essence of the two Taos is similar, so there is not much difficulty in merging them. But it also saved Liu Sheng a long time of hard work. If he was allowed to sum up and perfect it by himself, it is estimated that he would not be able to do it in a few days. Accompanied by the perfect integration of the extreme cold way. Boom! Liu Sheng's martial arts form is revealed spontaneously. The basalt tattoo imprint on Fa Xiang's body shone brightly, exuding endless icy air. Immediately afterwards, the original 500,000 meter Dharma body began to skyrocket. Boom! It soared 100,000 meters in one breath, and only barely stopped when it reached a height of 600,000 meters. After the fusion, the Northern Suanwu Zhen Shui Dao has reached level 13, which can be regarded as catching up with the Dao of the stars and the Dao of the divine crystal. Liu Sheng was quite satisfied. The most intuitive benefit brought by the growth of martial arts is that his fourth supernatural power, the golden glazed body, will also be strengthened. And after the Northern Suanwu True Waterway reaches level 13, its power can be considered acceptable. It is barely qualified to be one of Liu Sheng's many whole cards, and when facing the enemy, it can be regarded as an extra means of change. Finally, Liu Sheng's consciousness fell on the last and the biggest harvest. Memory treasures of 1,000 feather books. Liu Sheng devoured Jian Yusha's soul, except for absorbing the spiritual power contained in his soul, leaving nothing in memory. And the soul of Jian Yushu has brought Liu Sheng great benefits. The mental strength that allowed him to advance to the 12th level increased by about 10%. BT. After starting the follow-up inheritance of Duan Yi's way of Feng Shen crystal, and transforming the black sickle crystal spiritual human figure in his mind into a four-color crystal human figure, Liu Shui's spiritual power and quality got another qualitative leap. He pushed 7 or 8 planets before reaching the peak of the 2.211th level of the black sickle crystal spiritual figure. And after being promoted to the 12th level, if you push another 7 or 8 planets, it is estimated that it will increase by 10%. So don't look at it as a mere 10%, it is already an extremely huge number for Liu Sheng now, saving him a lot of time and energy. This guy's soul realm is estimated to be around the 13th level, maybe less than 13th, but it will definitely not be too far behind. Otherwise, Qian Yushu would not have sacrificed his spiritual power as the last card in the competition. It also happened to Liu Sheng, the freak. The quality of the spiritual power of the four-color crystal humanoid at level 12 was much higher than that of the general level 13 spiritual power, so it caused the result of hitting a stone with a pebble. Replace it with others, such as Monroe and his ilk. Maybe it was really overthrown by Qian Yushu. While thinking, Liu Sheng found out the memory of Qian Yushu and looked through it carefully. To be honest, he has always been extremely curious about the secrets hidden in Qian Yushu. 522 bloodlines should be respected by people, Dao Ling Zong, young Master Yu. Liu Sheng slowly touched the memory of Qian Yushu. He has done this operation countless times in the dream space, but in reality, it is the first time that it is serious. Even, the previous operation of devouring the soul of Qian Yushu was done on a whim, and he did it naturally. Just like cattle and sheep eat grass, beasts eat meat. An instinctive drive. Is it because I devoured and fused too many soul memories in the dream space, so that my soul also took on a bit of swallowing attribute, and became like a ferocious predator? It's really possible. After so many transformations and evolutions, Liu Sheng's martial body has reached a level of life far beyond that of ordinary people. His mind and soul have devoured hundreds of millions of memories. It stands to reason that the quantitative change should have caused the qualitative change long ago, and when the transformation has reached an even more unfathomable level. Go to the center of the Serpentis galaxy in the future, you can test it carefully. Liu Sheng once heard Dunlop talking about it when he was chatting with him. In the center of the Sky Snake galaxy, the home of the Celestial Academy, there is a star chart as huge as a planet. The horoscope charts of substar regions like the sub-Jupiter region are all imitations of it. Think of it as the terminal of some gigantic body. These terminals have functions similar to the main equipment, but they are not powerful and comprehensive. For example, the horoscope chart of the star area can only test the extraordinary life physique of the highest immortal level. Immortal level up, can't be tested. That is to say, although Liu Sheng is an immortal bloodline on the surface, it is not necessarily just an immortal bloodline. Yes, there are higher levels of existence above the immortal level. But what exactly, Dunlop doesn't know. He doesn't know whether the Serpentis galaxy has ever appeared. In addition, the main astrology chart of the main courtyard of Tianwei can also test the aptitude of the soul, spiritual force. There is even a saying that the main star chart is connected to the ancestral star, and it can also test a person's martial arts. Misty and mysterious luck can be tested. It's really unbelievable. When Dunlop said it as a story, Liu Sheng also had the right to listen to it as a story. Not to mention luck, Liu Sheng doesn't even believe in qualifications. It is the most stupid behavior to judge a person's future achievements by qualifications and bloodlines. I'm very strong, so they call me the immortal bloodline. It's not because I have immortal blood, so I'm strong. If I am the strongest person in this universe, then my bloodline is the most noble and powerful bloodline in this universe. Blood. Be respectful of people. Liu Sheng's eyes were calm, thinking about himself. When he first set foot in martial arts, he was just a good-for-nothing high school student who couldn't even eat 2 bowls of rice for one meal. When my cub is born, the starting point will be much higher than mine. I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing. Sheng shook his head slightly. He hasn't officially become a father yet, but he already has the troubles of being a team member. Thinking about it casually, Sheng rolled up his mental power and wrapped up the memory of Qian Yushu. In an instant, countless pictures flooded his mind. In a prosperous metropolis, in a delivery room. A beautiful woman with a good face sweats profusely and gives birth to a baby. With the birth of the baby, the entire delivery room was brightly lit, and the shield of Hylan filled the room. The doctors and nurses in charge of delivery were stunned, staring blankly at the glistening baby in front of them. With the next breath, the air in the delivery room fluctuated, and a hole was opened in the void. A handsome, tall middle-aged man with long hair draped over his shoulders and eyes like lightning came out of the hole. He raised his hand casually, and time in the delivery room seemed to stop. Everyone's body was frozen and turned into clay statues. The only ones who can move are the newly born baby and the middle-aged man who appeared in the group. The aptitude is acceptable, so it's not in vain for me to make this trip. The middle-aged man stared at the baby born with visions for a while, then gently picked him up. The other hand tore a hole in the void again. Just as he was about to step in, his gaze swept over the lying woman lying on the bed, with a look of nostalgia in his eyes. After thinking for a while, he finally shook his head, ignored it, and took the baby straight into the gap in the void. After the man disappeared, everything in the delivery room returned to normal. The doctors and nurses in charge of delivering the baby woke up as if they had just woken up from a dream. When they looked down, they were stunned again. Where's the child? Where's the newborn child? Have no idea. Damn it, I picked it up with my own hands, why didn't I hit it in the blink of an eye? Could it be related to the vision just now? How should I explain to the mother later? Damn, what is this called? On a certain planet. Rolling mountains, lush virgin forests. Everywhere on this planet is filled with the natural breath and energy of the universe. It can be called the first-class blessed place. A 5 or 6-year-old boy, with tightly pursed lips, has stubbornness and determination written all over his delicate and elegant face. His eyes were fixed on the person in front of him. This man had an old face, but he was wearing a rather gorgeous dress that looked like an ancient armor. He looked at the child in front of him gently and lovingly. Your name is Qian Yushu, and your father is Master Qian Yi, the master of the 9th peak of Dao Lingzong, who is also my master. Dao Lingzong is the most powerful sect of cultivating immortals in the entire Kangqing galaxy, not one of them. Your father is one of the few immortal cultivators in the Taoyi galaxy. I didn't ask you about him. The boy rudely interrupted the old servant and shouted, I ask you, where is my mother? Where is my mother? The old servant pondered for a moment, then said in a low voice, Master has explained. When Master Yu breaks through the nascent soul realm, he will be able to find his mother on his own, and he will not stop him. But before the nascent soul realm, the young master cannot leave this planet. The boy stared at the old servant in front of him, and clenched his fists tightly. After a long time, slowly loosen. National infant realm, right? Okay, then I'll show him how to become a nascent soul. With that said, the boy turned around and jumped off the top of the cliff where he was now. It fell straight into the deep pool below like fine nectar. Nyolis, with the boy jumping in, huge bubbles appeared in Yuten, as if boiling. The old servant stood on the top of the mountain, silently watching the boy below, with complex expressions on his face. Among the more than 100 descendants of Lord Qunyi, young Master Yu's aptitude is not top-notch, but his will and character are outstanding. Future achievements may not be lower. Only. The old servant sighed softly, looked at the boy who was cultivating hard in the pool and said to himself in a low voice, how can it be so easy to break through the nascent soul realm? The lifespan of a mortal is only a few dozen years, can you really last until the day you go to find her? Young Master Yu, I look forward to your future, don't blame Master Qian Yi. Immortals are different, immortals are ruthless. Time flies, hundreds of years pass by. A lot of author friends around me have started to take a long vacation. I'm fine, I'm just changing with the fate, there are still 14 days, brothers. 523 The Way of Immortal Martial Arts, 1. A corner of the huge planet is shrouded by almost endless thunderclouds. Countless thunderbolts rolled in the thunderstorm, and lightning fell one after another, covering a mountain range below. Except for the electric light and the earth and stone smoke, nothing can be seen clearly. Two figures stood in the air, watching all this from a distance. One of them was the old servant in armor, and the other was a handsome young man with fluttering sleeves and crimson eyebrows. Under the watchful eyes of the two, the thundercloud intensified, just like Lei Zhu who destroyed the world. Countless mountains, rivers, and trees were shattered and scorched black under the terrible thunder. The handsome young man's face was normal, but the old servant's face showed a hint of worry. I don't know how long, suddenly. With the sound of King Yu Jianming, the brilliant golden sword light pierced through the clouds and swept the sky. In the blink of an eye, the thunderclouds scattered in the sky, and the majesty collapsed. A slender and tall young man surrounded by countless golden sword lights stepped out of the thunder cloud. The young man walked straight towards the two of them, and when they were approaching, suddenly a few inches in size, a fat, white boy holding a sword jumped out of the sky. From the child's mouth came a light whistle like the sound of a sword, shaking the universe. Successful. There was a smile on the old servant's face, and he cupped his hands from a distance and said, "Congratulations to young Master Yu for being promoted to Yuanying, with a lifespan of 5,000, and the prosperity of Xianyun." The eyes of the handsome young man with purple eyebrows also became gentler, with a look of relief emerging. The child holding the sword let out a soft whistling sound and then returned to his physical body, and he came to the two of them in a flash. Seeing the handsome young man with a crimson brow, Qian Yushu showed a smile on his face, and called out, "Brother 12. You are still here to take care of me and attack the nascent soul." The handsome young man smiled and nodded, "With your aptitude, you don't need me to take care of you. I just came here to congratulate you, but I didn't expect to arrive a few days earlier." Having said that, there was still a warm current in Qian Yushu's heart. The two talked for a while. Qian Yushu straightened his expression, turned to look at the old servant next to him, and fixed his eyes on him. "Spiritual servant, I have been promoted to nascent soul according to your request. Now, you can tell me about your mother." The old servant said softly, "It's not the old slave's request, but Master Qian Yi's request to young Master Yu. Since young Master Yu has become a nascent soul, this old slave will naturally fulfill his promise." As he said that, the old servant tapped his fingers lightly, and the aura of the sun oozed from his fingertips. Qian Yushu stretched out his hand to hold this aura tightly in the palm of his hand, the light in his eyes flickered. "Mother. A certain mortal planet, a certain suburban cemetery." Qian Yushu, dressed in black, stood in front of a tombstone, quietly looking at the picture of a woman with a gentle smile on the tombstone, without saying a word. Died of natural old age 12 years ago. Master Qinyi bestowed many life-prolonging panaceas, but manpower cannot stop God's will after all. It is not easy for a mortal without spiritual roots to live for more than 300 years. The old servant behind him spoke in a low voice. Qian Yushu was stunned, his eyes showed a lot of loss, regret, and anger, and finally turned into deep confusion. The young man with crimson brows stepped forward and put his hand on his shoulder lightly. "In the future, help me by your side." Qian Yushu was silent for a long time, and finally nodded heavily. The memory of Qian Yushu is huge and complicated, and the memory after Yuanying, apart from the long and boring daily practice, is to help the handsome young man with purple brows and the heirs of Qian Yi, the 9th peak master of Dao Ling Zone, to fight openly and secretly. During this process, Sheng saw an extremely mature and brilliant civilization. But it is different from the free and open atmosphere of the martial arts civilization in the Sky Snake Galaxy. The civilization where Kunyashu is located appears to be feudal, strict, and cruel. The civilization hierarchy of the universe I live in is pretty strict, but the Federation of Star Regions still speaks a little bit about human rights. Many things that are excessive are not dared to be done on the table. But in the eyes of high-level monks in the immortal civilization, what is the difference between low-level mortals and pigs and dogs? Regardless of righteousness or evil, harvesting the lives of mortals from a planet or even several planets in order to practice a certain technique or refine a certain magic weapon is a casual and normal thing. After reading the memory of Jianyushu, Lu Sheng took a deep breath and was quite shocked. After killing Jianyushu before, all the remaining guilt left in his heart disappeared. Those who kill people will always kill them. These fellows reincarnated from the immortal civilization. If they don't treat the people at the bottom as human beings, then they must be prepared to be eaten up, assy. After absorbing this memory, Lu Sheng gained a lot. The benefits obtained can be said to be huge. A relatively complete immortal civilization cultivation system. These include exercises, arrays, magical powers, pills. Thousands of feather books, thousands of years of hard work have made Lu Sheng cheap. The only thing that makes Lu Sheng regret is he did not find in Jianyushu's memory the skills inherited from Dao Ling Zone, not even the skills that Jianyushu used when fighting him could summon countless sword lights to form a magic circle. It's reasonable, and it would be strange if there were no protective measures for this kind of inheritance related to the foundation of the sect. Otherwise, the disciples under the sect will be caught by the opponent, and their underwear will be stripped off. However, although there is no most important inheritance, there are also many other exercises accumulated by Kunyashu over thousands of years. Either buy it, or steal it, or kill people to seize treasure, or get it through other channels. There are all kinds of things, no less than 1,000 kinds. Among them, the one that Jianyushu valued the most was a technique called Xianling Bao Lu. The grade is also slightly lower than Jianyushu's own Dao Ling Zong inheritance skills, and theoretically it can be cultivated to the Mahayana state, equivalent to the 15th level of martial arts. Lu Sheng blinked, and gently stroked his clean chin with one hand. In fact, he is not very sure, he calculated it based on Jianyushu's memory. The biggest difference between immortal civilization and martial Dao civilization is that in martial arts practice, each person's path is not unique, but it must be the most suitable for him. But immortal Dao is different. It seems like everyone is going the same way. Different practice methods represent only the speed of moving forward on this road. If you don't practice it yourself, it's hard to really distinguish the difference between the two cultivation systems. Lu Sheng's heart was restless, and he had the urge to practice immortality. Although he now carries a 16th level Tao, Yang Yizhu, and two 15-level Taos, Wang He and Duan Yifeng. But what he wants to go, his own way of perfection is all-encompassing and all-encompassing. The more Taos that are concurrently cultivated, the better. I can meet 1,000 feather book, and in the future I may meet the second, the third, an opponent from the immortal civilization. As the saying goes, if you know yourself and the enemy, you can win every battle. If you don't know your opponent, how do you defeat your opponent? You can practice it, maybe it can produce some wonderful chemical reactions, and achieve an unprecedented way of immortal martial arts. Lu Sheng's heart is very big. The reason why he is so bachelor is mainly because he knew a long time ago. The 16th level of Tao cannot stop the crisis of the dark side cosmic invasion. And the highest achievement he may have achieved so far is only level 16. Instead of following the steps, it is better to let yourself go. No matter what kind of mess it is, let's talk about it first. What if it is an opportunity to break through to a higher level? 10,000 steps back, I still have the original power of the universe to assist me, so I may not be able to deduce immortal martial arts. Then, try to practice. Lu Sheng's eyes flickered, as if he had made up his mind. 524 True Spirit, picking the best of the two families. Because of absorbing the memory of Jian Yushu, Lu Sheng has no hindrance in understanding Xianling Bao Lu. In fact, although Jian Yushu has never practiced this technique, he has figured out this technique thoroughly for thousands of years, and has practiced it countless times in his mind. Now these theories and experiences are all cheap for Lu Sheng. The most critical point in the cultivation system of the immortal civilization is the spiritual root. The spiritual root is the threshold. Without the spiritual root, no matter how powerful the cultivation method is in front of you, it is difficult to get started. And the spirit root? Lu Sheng pondered for a while, referring to Jian Yushu's memory. I found that this thing is actually similar to the brand of martial arts condensed by martial artists when they are promoted to martial saints at the 9th level of martial arts. The key point is to rely on it to stimulate the resonance between itself and the heaven and earth, and lead the universe into the body naturally. The spiritual root is a bit more mysterious, it is inborn, and is closely connected with the soul. From this point of view, although the brand of martial arts is formed by martial artists entrusting their own martial arts to be condensed, but its essence should also be innate. Whether it is the spiritual root or the brand of martial arts, the core of the two is the same. Lu Sheng tried to find a suitable word to describe this core. In the end, he named this core as True Spirit. The true spirit is the key to cultivating individuals to communicate with the universe. True spirit is born. The stronger and more perfect the true spirit is, the stronger the ability to communicate with the natural energy of the universe. For immortal Dao, the true spirit is a valve, a switch. All external energy needs to enter the body through the valve of the true spirit. As the strength increases, the faucet becomes bigger and bigger, and the energy that can be poured into the body also gradually increases, step by step. Martial Dao is to grow itself first, wait for the faucet to grow to a certain level, and then open it suddenly to complete the qualitative transformation. The two ways seem to be very different, but in fact they still lead to the same goal by different routes, and there is not much difference in essence. The only difference is probably Immortal Dao focuses on mobilizing the natural energy of heaven and earth, and most of its strength rests outside the body. But martial arts focuses on tempering oneself, and most of the strength lies in oneself. The former has thin blood and high attack. The latter has thick blood and relatively average ability in graphics. As for which is better? So far, Lu Sheng still can't see it, and he won't know until later in his practice. But from his point of view, Xiandao still has a great supplementary effect on him. At least, the immortal Dao cultivation system's borrowing and dispatching of the natural energy of the universe can be regarded as a playful game. Among them, those magic circles, runes, spells, supernatural powers. Each one is complicated and profound, and a single force can produce 1,000 points of attack effect, which is beyond the reach of martial arts for the time being. This point is vividly reflected in Jian Yushu. The overall strength is inferior to Monroe, but the degree of threat to Lu Sheng is far beyond Monroe's reach. Even Lu Sheng was envious of Jian Guanzhao's supernatural powers, which were tumbling like a sea. If I can learn from the strengths of the Xianwu family, what kind of heights can I achieve in the future? Lu Sheng was looking forward to it. He also understands the origin of the Thousand Feather Book, which indeed comes from another universe. Also suffered from the erosion of the dark side of the universe, after being unable to return to heaven, the monks of the entire fairy civilization were reincarnated in the world under the leadership of the powerful monk. The Book of Thousand Feathers is just one of them. Similar to Thousand Feather Book, there should be more than one immortal Dao power who reincarnated into this universe. Maybe in the future, I will meet someone who knows Bing Yu. On the contrary, Lu Sheng thinks this is a good thing. With the existence of these reincarnated civilizations whose homes have been destroyed, the powerful in this Fang universe should be able to recognize the nature of the alien beast invasion, pay more attention to this crisis, and plan ahead. After thinking about it a lot, Sheng started to practice the Xianling Bao Lu in his hand. The first step should be to introduce air into the body. Sheng thought, and really started to try. With a thought. Are you already on your way? Okay. Everything is good here, except that I don't have anyone to talk to with me, so I'm so bored. On Maternity Star, Zheng Yufen sat under a towering tree surrounded by dozens of people, holding a communication crystal and video chatting with equally boring girlfriends and sisters who are on the migrating spaceship. Not far from her, Lu Qinghe was running back and forth with Lu Dahai and a piece of wood on his shoulders, and kept saying, "Dad, hold on, the 7th level Grandmaster is just around the corner." Originally, Lu Qinghe practiced alone, but Lu Dahai was bored, so he also practiced martial arts together. Which man didn't dream of being a master when he was young? Although Lu Dahai is old now, under such favorable conditions, it is still very possible to challenge the 7th level Grandmaster. Next to it, Dong Qingxiu is directing the engineering robot to build a house for the family and various infrastructures. Dozens of blueprints were suspended around her, and thousands of engineering robots were arranged in an orderly manner by her. From time to time, I can still find time to see the situation of Zheng Yufen and Lu Qinghe. 0. Ask for flowers. A family of 4 each have their own things to do, everything seems peaceful and beautiful. At this moment, there was a sudden surge of airflow over Yang Taixing, and countless clouds and mist gathered. In the clouds and mist, there are streamers of different colors and overflowing brilliance, like hundreds of millions of ribbons. These clouds and colored ribbons gathered above everyone's heads, accumulated thicker and thicker, and finally collapsed from it, forming a huge funnel with a sharp tip hanging down. The direction where the tip of the funnel falls is not far from where the few people are. This sudden spectacle made several people stunned for a moment. Soon, Lu Qinghe was the first to react. It must be the movement made by my brother. Lu Qinghe took a deep breath, and felt a stream of incomparably cool air being sucked into her body. It was as if the clear spring had washed the whole body, and the whole person was refreshed by it. It's so comfortable. Lu Qinghe couldn't help but narrowed his eyes. Lu Haihei, Zheng Yufen, and Dong Qingxiu obviously felt this too. It is not clear whether it is cloud, mist, water vapor, or what is brought about by the spectacle. Being in it, the whole body is indescribably comfortable and refreshed, as if being washed by clear running water all the time. It is extremely refreshing. Several people knew about Lu Sheng's methods, and the various wonders and visions they had seen in the universe during this period of time counted as quite a few. This bit of magic was quickly accepted by the few people, and they gradually got used to its existence. And at the same time, in another place dozens of kilometers away from the location of several people, a strong man with a height of more than 4 meters, a dark blue complexion, a long tail and pointed ears, dressed like a warrior from a primitive tribe, was staring blankly at the scene in front of him. He's at the bottom of a giant funnel. You can see with your own eyes countless clouds, mist, and streamers pouring into the 10,000 meter waterfall. Render the whole waterfall into a stream of light overflowing. Puff! Suddenly, a group of water splashes exploded in the waterfall. A tall and strong stag stepped out of the water. The man's dark blue pupils contracted, and he saw that this prey, which he had pierced through the body with a spear and driven to this place, was dying and had almost no way out, was intact at this time, and was staring at him lively. Abba! Abba! With a strange cry, the man dropped the spear in his hand and knelt down on the ground, kowtowing desperately towards the waterfall. After knocking for a while, he grabbed the spear, turned around and left like flying. 525 Immortal Realm, Golden Core Planet. From the first moment Xianling Bao Lu started to operate, Lu Sheng knew that his idea was right. A large amount, superstar, massive cosmic natural energy poured into his body. Immortal cells were generated one by one, and the speed wasn't too fast at first. But gradually, like a snowball, faster and faster. In the end, it was almost comparable to his speed in the star training field. These cosmic energies drawn by Xianling Baolu are complex but pure, entering his body like a river and sea, warming and nourishing every cell in his body. The original 80,000 immortals are continuously undergoing transformation, from the main sequence star form to the direction of the red giant star form and quickly approaching step by step. Liu Sheng let go of his mental strength, clearly seeing the magnificent spectacle formed by himself outside, and thought to himself, "Is my qualifications good?" According to the memory of Jian Yushu, the spiritual roots of monks of the immortal civilization are divided into 9 grades, upper, middle and lower. 253 has 1 rank and 1 heaven, and the speed of practice of each rank is very different. Jian Yushu is a 2nd rank spiritual root qualification, born with visions, but Liu Sheng compared his memory and found that his ability to handle cosmic energy is more than 100 times stronger than Yushu. That is to say, my martial Dao branding true spirit is more than 100 times stronger than Jian Yushu. No matter what, Xianling Baolu gave Liu Sheng a big surprise. Such a powerful cosmic energy throughput ability is unmatched by any martial art he has practiced. Even if he can't integrate immortal martial arts, it will be of great benefit to him if he only cultivates it concurrently. I'm afraid it won't be long before I can enter the 11th level naturally. Liu Sheng is now at the 10th level, but there are 7 or 8 kinds of martial arts in him that have reached the peak of the 5 realms and control the rules. 10th to 11th, or even 12. For him, there is no threshold at all, as long as he accumulates enough energy, he can be easily promoted. If Liu Sheng's body is compared to a container, then he has now reached the size of the 12th level. It's just that most of the space in this container is still empty and needs to be filled with energy. Liu Sheng has been working hard before, but his progress is too fast. The speed of energy container expansion is faster than the speed of energy accumulation. Every time the number of immortal cells increases, the container expands by 1 point. That is, Liu Sheng, replaced by other ordinary people, is worried about how to expand the container. And the speed of this energy accumulation process depends on the size of the bottle mouth of Liu Sheng's container. The larger the bottle mouth, the greater the water intake and the faster the energy accumulation. Before that, Liu Sheng's bottle mouth wasn't too big. Now, because of Xianling Baolu, the mouth of his bottle has been enlarged to a considerable extent, enough to keep up with the speed of the container's enlargement. For this alone, Liu Sheng felt that it was worthwhile to also practice the immortal Kung Fu. A sea of energy flowed into Liu Sheng's body, and the more than 80,000 immortal cells in his body were like thirsty seeds, greedily absorbing this energy and growing rapidly. The number of immortal cells is also increasing rapidly. From the original 80,000 yuan, it quickly broke through 80,000 days. Then 82,000, 3,000, 4,000. During this process, those cosmic energies are transformed from gas to liquid quickly under the transformation of Xianling Baolu, and then condensed from liquid to crystal. Finally, a white ball the size of a chicken ball formed at the lower abdomen of Liu Sheng's Danshan. It's like the martial Dao golden elixir of the 8th level great sect realm. With just a flash of divine effort, the white sphere expanded rapidly, causing from the original size of a chicken, to the size of a fist, the size of a watermelon. Damn it, it won't burst my bladder. Liu Sheng's heart tightened, but it turned out that his thoughts were overwhelmed. The white ball continued to grow rapidly, and its diameter quickly exceeded 1 meter, 2 meters, 10 meters. But Liu Sheng's Danshan also seems to be boundless. No matter how the white ball grows, it can easily accommodate his subjects. Is this my immortal Dao golden pill? Liu Sheng blinked, a little stunned. He compared the memory of Jian Yushu, although there is a big difference between the immortal golden pill and the martial arts golden pill. But the average person is only the size of a chicken egg, and the extraordinary one is as big as a fist. I've never heard of it being so big. It stands to reason that when the golden core swells to a certain extent, the water will overflow when it is full, and the moon will lose when it is full. When the broken core becomes a baby, it is time to enter the next stage. Sheng could still recall the fat, white, baby-like little man that burst out of Jian Yushu's head back then. It is the embodiment of the immortal Dao Jindan realm entering the next stage of the nascent soul realm. But the golden pill that Sheng condensed from practicing Xianling Bao Lu was so large that it was unimaginable and jaw-dropping. Even the practice experience of Jian Yushu's second life cannot be explained. Does the problem lie in the Xianling treasure record, or is it in myself? Sheng was uncertain. At this time, the sea-like cosmic energy was still pouring into Sheng's body continuously. The golden core condensed from Xianling Bailu is still crazily increasing by 0. Following this trend, Sheng wondered if he would be able to spit out a white planet after spitting out the golden core after a while. The benefits are obvious. The huge energy brought by the immortal golden elixir made the number of Sheng's immortal cells skyrocket, skyrocket, skyrocket. It has already broken through the level of 150,000 pieces. Almost doubled. And it doesn't seem to be slowing down, it's still accelerating like a snowball. In the process, Sheng's Wu also undergoes wonderful changes. Originally, his martial body was a star supreme body, tailor-made for the 15th level star way. The martial body grows completely according to the evolution that best suits the star. Now, because of the emergence of the immortal Dao Golden Pill, some white, inexplicable, and mysterious lines began to grow on Sheng's star supreme body. The pattern of immortality. 2 sharp lights shot out from Sheng's eyes. He has the ambition to integrate immortal martial arts, and he thinks it will be difficult. But at present, it seems that this first step is going more smoothly than he imagined. Or in other words, immortal martial arts are originally one, and the two are extremely compatible, and there are 2 paths that complement each other. Sheng didn't know, he just knew it was a good thing for him. Immortal Dao and martial Dao are put together to produce a wonderful effect like a chemical effect. In this way, the huge golden core in his danshan, which is different from ordinary people, can also be explained. Sheng even had a faint feeling in his heart. When the way of immortal martial arts is truly integrated, the resulting things may give him an unexpected surprise. But why don't these 2 teachings of Kunyasha 0.6 fellow practitioners have this effect? Sheng frowned. Jian Yushu was reincarnated into this universe, and he had also practiced martial arts, but the effect of combining the 2 was mediocre. Is it because he gave up martial arts early on and didn't practice martial arts deeply? Sheng didn't know either. He also thought of those powerful beings who reincarnated into this universe with Jian Yushu. Among them, there must be no shortage of talented people with great perseverance and wisdom. Perhaps, at this moment, there are some other people who are trying to integrate Xianwu with the same idea as him. It's impossible for me to walk a road to death alone. I will meet each other in the future. It just happens to confirm each other. Only communication can make progress. Sheng thought, and his mind entered the dream space. As a result, he was shocked by one of the changes as soon as he entered. Thank you for watching. Continue exploring the fascinating world of Chinese novels with us. Hit that subscribe button on Chinese Novel Audio Wave to stay updated with our latest stories. And never miss out on a great listen.